Chapter 1080. Topple the Beliefs. Chapter 1080. Topple the Beliefs, __. Before the 10 gold flood dragons created by the sharp metal energy could reach Shuryen, the phantoms of Demogorgons had stopped them. The Demogorgon phantoms were filled with brutality, bloodlust, and craziness. They were black and icy, carrying a formidable evil aura. Those giant Demogorgons were the combination of the evil spirit and the death energy, with a wisp of Shuryen's essence soul. Right after they appeared, they faced the sky and howled, releasing tremendous energy waves. Shuryen cut the void with one hand, releasing countless space blades which were even sharper than the sharpest sabers. They all swarmed inaudibly towards Jinlai. Space slits appeared in the void around Jinlai, where brilliant beams of light shot out. Confine. Shuryen's pupils shrank when he hissed. With that, the space around Jinlai was locked, as if it was tied by invisible chains. The heaven and earth energy was stagnant, the wind ceased, and the energy vanished. It seemed like even light was forced to stop moving. At that moment, everybody could see Jinlai halt in the void all of a sudden, as if he was struck by the body-fixing spell. The 10 gold dragons Jinlai had released trembled hard. The Demogorgons grabbed the dragons, tearing them into small pieces. Gold light bloomed in the sky and then vanished. The confined space now looked like a tranquil lake which just had a big rock dropped in it. It rippled, sending out giant waves. The fine space slits invaded shortly after, causing Jinlai's body to echo cracking sounds. His face paled, while his eyes showed a gleam of fear. Pfft! Jinlai couldn't help but spurt out a mouthful of blood. His god body shook, and in just a blink of an eye, his body had many fine cuts which began to bleed terribly, as if he had been cut by many knives. All the onlookers of the divine light and the fiery rain star area were dead silent. They all gawked, dropping their jaws and looking shocked. Shaoen's bright but cold smile was now turning into a grimace. His lips trembled, but he couldn't utter a word. Yushan's hair bun shivered while locks of her black hair fluttered behind her back. Her bright eyes looked extremely stunned. Miaorong, Jubo, and Sana were dumbstruck like wooden chickens. They were bewildered for a long time before grinning evilly. Huh! Xianfei let out a low cry, her beautiful eyes filled with radiant lights. At this moment, she didn't know what to say. Many warriors of the fiery rain star area thought they were dizzy. They couldn't help but rub their eyes as though they wanted to see things clearer. They couldn't believe that Jinlai was pushed into such a state, and that he got hurt in just a short time. They couldn't believe what they had just seen. Jinlai had trickles of blood on the corners of his mouth, but he didn't look dispirited at all. On the contrary, his fighting will was triggered, as he grinned fiendishly. Swish! Dazzling gold lightning beams lingered on his entire body like worms. With a close look, one would recognize that those were actually the bulging veins in his god body. His veins were now golden and glowing, wiggling in his skin and giving him a peculiar look. Fiery Rain Star area warriors were stunned. They cried in fear, pulling themselves together to observe the fight. Xianfei covered her mouth, screaming instinctively. Gold lightning god body. He's combined the metal power Upanishad and lightning power Upanishad? Sana changed his countenance to a grimace. Jubo slightly shook his head. No, it's not like that. Jinlai's main power's the metal power Upanishad. I guess he had a lucky encounter in which his god body was quenched by lightning. Lightning isn't his power, he just has the energy stored in his body, and he can use it together with the metal power. Xia Xinyan and Ziyao were still calm. They didn't show their panic-stricken countenances. Under people's gaze, Jinlai's veins bulged as if they were real lightning blots. His god body glowed radiantly with golden light, emitting more robust energy waves. His entire body's muscles swelled under the urge of his metal and lightning energies. He was filled with the explosive energy of lightning and metal. Lightning and metal powers had enhanced Jinlai's god body. At this moment, he looked like a golden man who was molded out of liquid gold. His aura bloomed as he dashed with the rainbow momentum towards Shuryen. He moved like a sharp, golden sword. Shuryen's face was calm. He squinted, urging his power Upanishad and hissing for the second time. Confine. Jinlai, who was storming towards him, halted all of a sudden. However, he forcefully wiggled out of the space confinement. Once again, he stormed towards Shiryen, this time even faster than before. Shiryen's eyes were bright. He smiled and nodded as he knew Jinlai had urged all the energy of his body. His furious power had helped him get rid of Shiryen's space confinement. Good to see you here. He wasn't afraid, but actually cheered up. He smiled while his god body changed. Under everybody's gaze, his god body suddenly shriveled. His hunky, majestic body became tragically thin. Wisps of pale mist gushed out of his acupuncture points, flooding the surroundings shortly. Many warriors who were watching this battle had to frown, looking at his body. They suddenly felt like their souls had fallen into a fantasy mirror where they were nipped and torn by evil spirits, demons, and wailing ghosts in a blood sea with many white bones jutting out. They felt that both their souls and bodies were invaded by the evil and negative moods. Everybody discolored in fright, hurrying to get themselves together. They all looked panic-stricken. After they had stabilized their souls, they looked at Shiryen once again, their faces ashen. What kind of an evil power was this? They had just looked at him several times, and their souls had sunk down there. They felt desperate, as if they would never get rid of that blood sea. They seemed to be able to see death approaching. When they could react, they realized that Shiryen didn't aim at them. With that, they felt even more terrified. Xiao En and many other experts of the Fiery Rain Star area couldn't help but remind Jinlai. Watch out! Don't jump into the mist. Unfortunately, it was too late. Jinlai was like a sharp, golden sword that directly and violently thrust into the immense white mist. He had jumped into the sea of negative moods, immersing in the blood sea, visiting each island made of white bones. Countless evil spirits and wailing, hungry ghosts were gnawing at his body and soul. It was the negative sea made of the negative energy of the death power Upanishad. It was a soul attack. Right after Jinlai jumped in, he entered layers of illusions. He lost his mind instantaneously, slashing the ghosts and evil spirits he saw, which didn't actually exist. People who were watching could see everything. They saw Shiryen squinting and floating aside, looking at Jinlai, who had lost his mind. The onlookers were now so afraid of Shiryen. Under people's observation, Shiryen chuckled, balling his left hand into a fist. He punched Jinlai neither hurriedly nor slowly. The immortal demon blood was urged. The arm with that fist suddenly emitted a brutal, savage energy. Spikes jutted out of his elbows, while rigid, iron-like armor covered his arm. At this moment, his arm showcased endless evil features. Boom! Jinlai got hit in his chest and was blown backward like an asteroid. His god body resounded popping sounds as if someone was frying beans unceasingly. He was struck, sent into the crowd of the Fiery Rain Star area battleships. Warriors of the Fiery Rain Star area had to catch him and check his situation. Jinlai panted, gasping for his breath. His face reddened as he shoved the others away. I'm all right. He adjusted his condition, trying to attack Shiryen one more time. But right at this moment, Yushan and Xiao En both stopped him. They were stern, their looks towards Shiryen complicated. I'm okay. I can fight more, Jinlai cried. Xiao En turned around to glare at him, sighing. He showed mercy. Or else you wouldn't be safe and sound. As he didn't defend himself and Shiryen had hit him with an ultimate energized punch, seeing that his god body was intact, even if Jinlai didn't know what had happened to him, Xiao En and Yushan had realized it. They could see clearly that when Shiryen struck his attack, and at the moment Jinlai was blown backward, the explosive energy had dispersed out. It didn't burst off his god body. Otherwise, even if Jinlai's god body didn't explode, he would be hurt severely. Jinlai is defeated. Yushan was resolute, declaring the result of this battle. She didn't allow him to fight anymore. The Divine Lights and Fiery Rain Star area's experts were boiling as they looked at Shiryen with fear. Shiryen was only at the first sky of ethereal god realm. He had used his first sky of Ethereal God Realm cultivation base to forcefully resist Jinlai at his peak of Ethereal God Realm. Even more appallingly, he had gained the upper hand right from the beginning. He had even showcased that if he used his strongest abilities, he could kill Jinlai shortly. He had toppled their cognition of powers completely. After they had arrived in the gourd-shaped island, the warriors of the Fiery Rain Star area had felt contempt toward the Divine Light warriors and the warriors of Agate Star area in general. But at this moment, they all quieted down, thinking about their purpose in taking this trip seriously. They didn't dare to disdain or underestimate the people here anymore. Xian Fei's beautiful eyes showed she was stunned. She suddenly jumped and yelled, "Wow! You're so strong! Even Jinlai Deji couldn't beat you." Jinlai was the famous Ethereal God Realm expert in Fiery Rain Star area. His extraordinary fighting competence had gained people's approval. It was also why when he started to attack Shi Yan, the experts of the Fiery Rain Star area had assumed that Shi Yan would lose. Today, Jinlai failed, beaten up badly. He was lucky that his opponent had shown mercy. Otherwise, Jinlai would have been killed today. "You guys can send another one." Shi Yan frowned, looking at the crowd of the Fiery Rain Star area in front of him. "You have like 10,000 warriors here with many Ethereal God Realm experts. I can slowly fight with you then. Don't worry that I would have to consume a lot of energy and that I wouldn't be able to resist you anymore." Warriors of the Fiery Rain Star area exchanged look, but they all kept silent. Ju Bo, Miao Rong, and the Divine Light warriors were filled with smiles, feeling so proud. "Are you really at the first sky of Ethereal God Realm?" Xiao En pondered for a while before asking. "Can't fake it," Shi Yan answered coldly. Xiao En sighed while looking at Yushan. "I think no other Ethereal God Realm expert in our force can defeat him. I admit that I have looked down the fellows in the Agate Star area. Leona should be like what you've told me. She is a genius in strategy and military tactics. I'm sure nothing's wrong with Leona's talents." "I've seen them with my own eyes," replied Yushan. "I'm convinced." Xiao En thought for a while and then stooped his head, admitting his defeat. "I will watch over our soldiers properly, and we will listen to the others' directions. We won't have any dispute or objections." Yushan was surprised, exhaling in relief. She then begged Shi Yan, "I'm sure my soldiers will listen to the commander. Can we meet Leona now?" Shi Yan frowned, pondering for a while before nodding. Chapter 1081, Link Up. Chapter 1081, Link Up, _ Before Yushan's force arrived, Shi Yan had completed the child formation. When Blood Devil, Leona, and Fei Lan went to Devil Blood Star, he had reminded Fei Lan to open the Mother formation in Devil Blood Star. Since he had prepared the suitable conditions for both sides, he was able to connect the Devil Blood Star and this place at any time. At the center of the island, space constantly changed on the center of the Radiant Crystal Child formation. Space nodes twinkled like stars with the mysterious power of nature. Under the other's gaze, Shi Yan chuckled and then stepped into the child formation. He flashed and then disappeared. Dash! A corner of Devil Blood Star. The Mother formation that many warriors were watching carefully suddenly glowed and rippled with many halos. Before people could react, a shadow emerged. Yang Jue, Shi Jian, and Long Ju, who were standing around, stepped forward and cheered loudly. The Mother formation was situated in the spacious yard inside the palace where the Yang family and the others stayed in Devil Blood Star. This area had many buildings, the new homes of the warriors from Grace Mainland. At the same time, there were warriors from Raging Flames Star area. This place hosted many people of various races indeed. Outside the vast city was the immense forest with abundant earth and heaven energy. Many people were moving through the spacious court. There were guards watching the Mother formation all the time. Of course, since Devil Blood Star was Blood Devil's territory, it was safe. Not many people dared to make a fuss here. "Hey boy, why did you come back?" Shi Jian laughed happily, his eyes excited. "I've reached King God Realm." Shi Yan's soul consciousness moved around as he looked at his grandfather. He praised the old man immediately. "Congrats, grandfather. Before he left Devil Blood Star, he had left the thousand-fold lotus to his relatives. Jian was one of the lucky ones who was nurtured by the thousand-fold lotus. Together with the enormous amount of cultivating materials provided by Potion and Tool Pavilion, Jian wasn't surprised to see him reach King God Realm. There were many people who had the same progress as Jian. With abundant earth and heaven energy, divine crystals, and pellets, those who came from Grace Mainland had all increased their realms significantly. Releasing his soul consciousness to sense for a while, Jian smiled sincerely. He nodded and said, "Everybody is making progress." Aside from the other members of the Yang family, Chao Qiudao, Tang Yuan Nan, and Yun Hao also had their realms increase significantly. They had all reached exquisite levels. They were all warriors who could still progress in Grace Mainland where energy was about to be exhausted. In this Devil Blood Star, with extra energy supply and the help of divine crystals and pellets, all of them had advanced much more than expected. While Jian, Yangzhua, and Jian were talking, the mother formation flickered behind them. Bao Ao, Jiaji, and Bo Ro slowly emerged. After they arrived, they immediately released their soul consciousness to sense and send out their special energy fluctuations. Thrilling screams and shouts arose from the palace next to them. Shortly after, experts of the demon clan swayed through the crowd to come. They were all excited and touched. "Master! Master! Master!" The members of the demon clan from Grace Mainland kneeled down in front of Bao Ao and Jiaji. They all had tears in their eyes. After 100 years, the masters who used to lead them reappeared in front of their eyes. Bao Ao, Jiaji, and Bo Ro had left Grace Mainland to find hope for their fellows, just like Jian. 100 years had passed and today, they finally met up in this place. All were filled with excitement and emotions. "Where's Leona?" Jian squinted, releasing his soul consciousness to find Benny. He then used the soul to ask him. "She went to the monster clans." Benny was surprised for a while before he could answer. Jian nodded. His floating soul consciousness suddenly felt Wulan. He used his soul to send her a message. "I'm Jian. Please contact Leona and ask her to return to Devil Blood Star now. I have a task for her." Wulan was the majordomo of the Devil Blood Star. She didn't go to Shadow Ghostly Prison since she had to take care of Devil Blood Star. This woman had a good relationship with Jian though. Indeed, hearing from Jian, Wulan smiled and answered, "Not a problem. I'm going to notify her, but I don't know what she will say. Haha, at this moment, she's the greatest treasure of the monster clan. Unless she wants to leave, no one can take her away." Jian smiled as he was a little amazed. He knew it was like that. With Leona's talents, Bath and Gute wouldn't let her stay idle. They would try their best to make her use all of her efforts to build the monster legions. "Okay, you just notify her for me then." Jian replied and then said nothing more. He began to wander around. He saw Chao Qiudao, Chao Zilan, the members of the Chao family, Tang Yuan Nan, and the disciples of the Gu God Sect. His allies all had extraordinary realms, but they still had a long way before reaching him. Standing in front of the warriors he knew, he acted casually. However, the others were more cautious about seeing him. The invisible river between the realm and status had distanced them furthermore. No matter how friendly and close he tried to be, the others didn't dare to joke or chat with him anymore. They had even considered the hidden meanings in his words if there were any. This made Jian upset. Tang Yuan Nan said that Ouyang Luo Shuang of the Gu God Sect had left alone earlier to pursue the true meaning of powers. It seemed like she had been advancing really fast. In Grace Mainland, this woman was very lucky to get the incipient extent left by some incipient God realm expert. She had always leaped realms. When she went to Agate Star area, she was like a fish swimming in the vast sea. Every time Jian met her, he always had a new feeling. She didn't stay in Devil Blood Star to cultivate. She had her own decision. Perhaps when they met again, she would reach incipient God realm already. Taking a walk around Devil Blood Star, Jian gathered with Ka Tua, Fei Lan, and Benny. Those who had one inheritance of the Bloodthirsty's bloodline had a mysterious connection with him. When they accompanied him, they could receive a lot of benefits, which made them stick to him all the time. Today, Fei Lan had reached third sky of Ethereal God Realm. Ka Tua was at first sky of Ethereal God Realm, while Benny had second sky of Original God Realm. The three of them had different but marvelous powers Upanishads. One day, they would become the overlords of a whole region of this universe. Senior, I have something to talk to you about. Benny was a little hesitant. At this moment, Shuryen was standing by the Mother Formation in Devil Blood Star. He was about to return to the Shadow Ghostly Prison to give Yishan an answer. What do you want to tell me? Shuryen told him, next time you don't need to hesitate. Feel free to talk to me. Just don't say nonsense. Benny smiled in relief. I'm worried it's not appropriate. Can you elaborate? Shuryen frowned. Senior, do you really need good commanders who are good at planning strategies and tactics? Benny looked excited. Shuryen nodded. I think I can do that too. Benny suddenly became serious. Recently, I've comprehended the powers of my family's divine weapon. I got the family inheritance from it. Those complex strategic dispositions of troops carry the destructive principle of our family. I think if I can control the troops, I can promote their power to an intimidating level. Shuryen's eyes brightened. Benny came from another star area. He had the inheritance of destruction. At the same time, he had a divine weapon with the great power of destruction. According to him, when his family was still powerful, their army could confront the God Clan directly because of their special dispositions of troops. While he was studying with the divine weapon, he had received the inheritance of strategic dispositions of forces. His confidence caught Shuryen's attention. Shuryen asked him, is it true? Benny pointed at his head and said excitedly, I have many thoughts. Many mysteries of the army dispositions that my family had used and trained the forces. We have more than 10 different dispositions and tactics. But I need to practice. Kid, can you do that? Ka Tua felt strange. Why do you know those tactic things all of a sudden? Do you know how many bloody battles Madame Leona has experienced to have her current attainment? In our star area that year, Madame Leona's bloody legion was the invincible existence. Harumph. Benny lifted his head arrogantly. That year, our family's army of destruction could resist the extreme soldiers of the God Clan. The inheritance I got is from the divine weapon of my family. I'm confident that I can compete with Madame Leona. Fei Lan nodded and said to him, good. It's good that you have confidence. She turned to Shuryen. We can give him a chance. This boy has excellent innate endowments indeed. He's much stronger than many geniuses I've known. When he's serious about something, just like you, he will be wild and brutal. He has powers and bloodthirsty deeds. Good boy. Fei Lan always had keen eyes. Shuryen trusted her. Pondering for a while, he said, I will let you try. Later on, you will command a troop to compete with people. Do you dare to do that? Why not? Benny grinned evilly. He shook his head. I got knowledge stuffed in my brains. I want to see if it's sharp enough. If you give me a chance, I'm sure I will use it to the best of my abilities. Okay, come with me. Shuryen jumped into the Mother Formation. Fei Lan, Benny, and Ka Tua followed him immediately. In the next moment, they reappeared on the small gourd-shaped island. Yishan and Fiery Rain Star area experts were waiting for them. As Yishan didn't see Leona, she was disappointed. She asked, where is she? Training the soldiers in the Monster Clan's territory. I've notified her. She needs time to get back. Shuryen explained and then introduced. Hey, this is my little brother. He also has good attainment on training and strategic dispositions. If you don't mind, I will let him play for a while with Precursor Xiaoen. What do you say? Xiaoen frowned and glanced at Benny. If he wants to play, I'll let my little student play with him for a while. Since Benny had only second sky of Original God Realm and was still so young, Xiaoen didn't put him in his eyes. Shuryen smiled. He didn't seem angry. He said to Xia Xin Yen, let me borrow 300 warriors of your Windstorm War Department. The warriors of the Water Moon and Windstorm War Departments were all here. Their battleships were anchored by the sea near the island. They could come here at any minute. Okay, Xia Xin Yen smiled and agreed. Little Dao, you choose 300 warriors and fight with him. Xiaowen lowered his voice to order someone. Yes, master. A young man with a tender smile appeared. He was also at second sky of original God realm. He started to choose his soldiers neither hurried nor fast. Use King God realm warriors, suggested Shiryan. Xiaowen nodded in agreement. Chapter 1082. Talented Field Commander. Chapter 1082. Talented Field Commander, _ Above the vast sea, 2 troops of King God realm warriors were gathering and lining up in special dispositions. They were fighting fiercely. The young man was called Yu Dao and he was a disciple of Xiaowen. He also knew how to use strategic dispositions. He had experienced many fights against the God clan. He was deemed experienced in this field. Yu Dao wore a serene face and hid in the center of the formation of 300 warriors at King God realm of Fiery Rain Star area. He swayed like a ghost shadow, continually sending his commands in a low and gloomy voice. His voice was clear and cold as if it had some magic that could stir up the warriors of Fiery Rain Star area. With the charm of his voice, those warriors started to have a desire to fight. Their fighting competence was actually boosted. Yu Dao cultivated sound power Upanishad. With this kind of power, he had the natural advantage in commanding a battle. At the same time, he could trigger the potential of his warriors. He made them not wary of death, make them wildly bloodthirsty, and could even make them not feel pain. 300 soldiers of the troop he was commanding created a blood saber, which was ruthless and bloodthirsty. The chi of the 300 people had combined into one flow. Their different energy fluctuations started to synchronize and create a marvelous synergy. This troop of 300 warriors gave people the aura of a legion of 1,000 soldiers and 10,000 horses dashing. It made Xia Xin Yen and the warriors of the Divine Light discolor. Apparently, Yu Dao was like Xia Xin Yen. He was also a warrior whose expertise was to control a troop. He had innate talents in this field. Xiaowen chuckled and said, Yu Dao cultivates sound power Upanishad. Although his cultivation base isn't really exquisite, his sound ability could urge the potential of his soldiers. He could make them not feel pain and not be afraid of death. They would become wild and fearless. Of course, Yu Dao knows how to command his soldiers in the field. After hundreds of battles, he could still surprise people every time. Yushan nodded and gave her compliments. Sir Xiaowen, you're lucky to have such a good student. Xiaowen laughed, his face cheered up. Many warriors of Fiery Rain Star area also looked at Yu Dao without blinking, light filling their eyes. Compared to Yu Dao, Benny's performance was much worse. It was Benny's first time controlling a troop in a battle. He had the knowledge of different tricks, secrets, and major stationing. However, he had never practiced them before. He appeared somewhat flurried, his voice also hurried and muddled. Thus, before they had engaged in the battle, their disposition was twisted like a mess of tangled fibers. It didn't look like a professional stationing at all. Warriors of Divine Light and Fighting League looked disappointed. The warriors under Benny's command didn't have confidence. They scattered and didn't even listen to Benny's orders, which assigned their stations. The warriors of Fiery Rain Star area laughed as they saw such a poor arrangement. Xiaowen frowned. He contemplated for a while and gave Yu Dao a gesture, telling him not to attack immediately. You don't respect us. Xiaowen darkened his face. Sending a rookie like that kid, a person who has never commanded in a battle to confront us. You look down on us. Yushan also frowned. Xia Xin Yen was baffled. She stepped forward and whispered, should we change the commander? Let me fight that Yu Dao. I believe I'm as strong as he is. I'm sure we won't have an ugly defeat. She could see that Benny didn't have experience. She didn't know why Shiryan wanted Benny to command this troop, but this situation wasn't something Benny could control. As Fiery Rain Star area could make a fit about this, she proactively wanted to take the responsibility. Shiryan frowned and shouted, Benny, where's your wild power? Staying in the middle of the mess, Benny was so worried as if he had a flame in his heart. All of a sudden, he was shaken. A bloodthirsty desire swarmed over him. His anxiety boiled while his eyes had the evil light of destructive power, which was deadly and dangerous. Boom! A flow of energy that could kill all living beings shot out from Benny's body. He seemed to become a completely different person. He became extremely wild and crazy. A warrior of the Windstorm War Department didn't listen to him. He rose his hand to pat that man. The man's bones exploded, his body almost smashed. Benny's eyes turned garnet, which seemed to have blood brimming. A destructive desire diffused that could affect the souls of all warriors in his troop, their soul altars controlled. Immediately, Benny's order flowed like a gush of water as his soul consciousness poured into those people's brains directly. The chaotic melee of 300 soldiers suddenly had an aura that could destroy Earth and Heaven. Each warrior of Windstorm War Department seemed to be boosted to the extreme. Now, they looked as if they had just fallen into bedevilment. They all became wild and brutal. Benny's destructive aura had collected all the auras of his troopers' energy. In just a blink, he combined them into one massive flow. He looked like the devil that commanded his troop. The troop of 300 warriors seemed to turn into a giant demon from the 9 Serenity Purgatory. The evil and mad energy fluctuations violently swarmed towards Gu Dao's troop. He uses his soul to control people's chi and operating mechanism, gathering everything into one unit. Xiao En discolored all of a sudden, his body shivering. Yu Shan's eyes brightened radiantly. She was in disbelief. Apparently, she was also aghast. People who knew strategic military dispositions screamed. They looked dull as they couldn't explain what they were observing. Using the soul to gather the auras of the subordinates and using the soul consciousness to connect the soul altars were the subtlest methods to control the troop in combat that only legendary field commanders who ruled the whole region could do. As Xiao En and Yu Shan used to fight the God clan, they knew that the clan had just a few talented field commanders that could do so. They were astounded, indeed. It was obviously the first time Benny controlled a troop in combat. His wildness could create something magically terrifying when he used his soul to control the trooper's operating mechanism and chi to create the tide of the strongest attack. It was unimaginable, indeed. Gu Dao's troop had a totally different feeling compared to the audiences when they saw Benny and his troopers coming. In Gu Dao and the warriors of Fiery Rain Star Area's eyes, there was no Benny and his troop. There was a monster that had just crawled out of its pit in hell. With an open mouth, it spurted blood scent as it was storming violently towards them. It wanted to tear them apart. It was not a hallucination. They could even see the cold fangs and the evil, cold eyes of the monster. Their minds were subdued in just a blink of an eye. They felt dispirited as they couldn't resist this troop. Their formation was scattered from its formerly sharp disposition. Many people felt their feet soften. Seeing the earth-destroying aura like the devil from hell, Gu Dao felt his heart become cold. His eyes showed his panic. Gu Dao's troop was defeated right before the battle began. Stop! Xiao En thundered, shaking the entire sky. Under his thundering voice, what Gu Dao and his troop saw had changed. Now they didn't see the monster anymore. They pulled themselves together and found that it was the Windstorm Warriors and Benny in the middle of their formation. Benny's eyes were garnet, his face bloodthirsty. The destructive energy swirled around him. That energy was like countless silk fibers that sewed the Windstorm Warriors' chi into one bunch. The onlookers could see clusters of gray mist and clouds hovering around the troop of 300 warriors that vaguely formed the terrifying monster. It was very similar to the Demogorgon phantom that Shuryen had created. However, the monster above the troop of 300 was more gigantic and brutal. It was the chi and operating mechanism of 300 people that Benny had used his extraordinary power to collect and perform. It looked so real. The audiences could even see a fearsome, giant demon crawling above Benny's head. They could even feel the malicious aura of that demon, which made them discolor in fear. They now had to consider Benny once again. Gathering the troopers' auras to generate a demon that looked so real was some strategic disposition technique that went against nature. Even Xiao En and Yu Shan, who used to fight with the God clan, were dumbstruck. Now, they knew that if it wasn't the first time Benny controlled a troop, and if he was a talented, experienced field commander, he could make his core change earth-shakingly. The experts of Divine Light and Fighting League were also astounded. Miao Rong and Zhu Bo frowned as light sparkled restlessly in their eyes. Can we take this boy to our Fighting League? Miaorong suddenly approached Xia Xianyan and asked seriously, "This boy is a rough gem. Once he gets used to strategic dispositions, he will be a top field commander." Xia Xianyan smiled, her beautiful eyes raking around. "You can ask Shiryan. If he agrees, we will try our best to have him." "Who's foolish like that?" Miaorong forced a smile, shaking his head. He knew that hope was just in vain. "Shiryan, if he agrees to join the Divine Light, we will do our best to nurture him." Gu Bo came forward and spoke with an earnest face. Shiryan was surprised. He shook his head. Benny was slowly recovering from his insane state. He calmed down, but his eyes were still fluttering. "How do you compare him to Leona?" Shaoan dismissed Yu Dao's team. His face became so severe. He looked at Benny and asked Yushan, "I think with this kid, it's not important whether we could have Leona or not." He could see Benny's potential. As it was just the first time Benny commanded in combat, if he studied harder, he would become a peerless, talented commander. Since he had never seen Leona, in his eyes, Benny was the top field commander. He thought that Leona couldn't be compared to Benny. "This boy's not bad, but he lacks a lot of experience compared to Leona." Yushan chuckled. "Unless he has experienced more than 100 battles, he will have no chance to resist Leona. He doesn't have experience and he has never trained an army." Shaoan's eyes brightened up. "Is Leona that excellent? Maybe Benny will surpass her later. Right now, he's far behind her." "You tell me. Who do we need now?" Yushan smiled. "Both." Shaoan's eyes twinkled. "It's good that we can have both of them." Shiryan glared at him before smiling and waving his hand. "We're done here. Leona will come very soon. I will arrange for her to train your soldiers. About Benny, if you aren't afraid that he would cause harm, you can let him torture your soldiers for a while to help him earn experience. It's okay. If he agrees to work with us, it's our honor. We're glad to do that." Shaoan hurried to reply. "We're also glad to send our men for him to torture." Miaorong and Gu Bo also expressed. They looked excited and enthusiastic to proactively propose and chime in. Chapter 1083. Meditate and Calm the Soul. Chapter 1083. Meditate and Calm the Soul. ___. Just like Leona, after Benny had shown his talents, he had become burning hot in others' eyes. Warriors of the Fiery Rain Star area wanted him, and so did the Divine Light and Fighting League. At this moment, the forces staying on the Cloud Sea Star were boiling up because of Benny. They all asked Shiryan to have this talented commander. After that battle, Benny's debut had shown off his talents. He had become a character that could call the wind and summon the rain. People directly ignored his low realm as they only considered his talented leadership. But Benny listened to Shiryan and knew whom he could trust. Thus, he just kept silent. So, everybody now targeted Shiryan. Shiryan told them that they didn't have the spare efforts to train the core for different forces. At this moment, they would only help the Fiery Rain Star area. Afterward, when they had free time, they would discuss this matter again. He understood that the Fiery Rain Star area was now bearing a heavy pressure from the God Clan's threat. At this moment, many forces of the Fiery Rain Star area were facing the God Clan. It was crucial to him and the Fiery Rain Star area to improve the overall competence of the latter's competence. Only when the God Clan got damaged would it have no free time to notice the growth of Bloodthirsty's bloodline. It wouldn't pay attention to the Agate Star area then. Yushan and Shaoan were thrilled on listening to Shiryan. They felt so lucky, and this trip wasn't in vain. Divine Light and Fighting League felt extremely disappointed. However, Shiryan didn't have any relationship with them, and he didn't promise them anything. Shortly after, Shiryan, Yushan, and Shaoan discussed. They agreed to arrange the Fiery Rain Star area warriors to stay on this Cloud Sea Star. The Cloud Sea Star was in a corner of the Shadow Ghostly prison. It was near the Space Passage Hub and also near the Divine Light and the Fighting League. With the Child Formation, it was connected to the Devil Blood Star. Its location was quite convenient for them. No matter it was for Leona to come and train, or for the warriors of the Fiery Rain Star area to return to their headquarters and transport more materials, it was really convenient. The Cloud Sea Star used to belong to the Dark Shadow clan, and the Divine Light had claimed the star after that. However, since Shi Yan had rescued 3,000 warriors of the Divine Light, they decided to retreat from this place. If Shi Yan hadn't participated, normally, the Fighting League would take this Cloud Sea Star. Actually, Miao Rong and Xia Xinyan had planned to claim this Cloud Sea Star. However, after Shi Yan, Xiaoen, and Yushan had discussed their plan, they decided to make the Cloud Sea Star their rest stop. So, Miao Rong and Xia Xinyan didn't hesitate to agree, and declared that the Fighting League wouldn't have any other intention toward this planet. Thus, the Cloud Sea Star belonged to Shi Yan for the time being, and the warriors of the Fiery Rain Star area could stay here for a while. Because of Shi Yan's special relationships with Xia Xinyan and Zi Yao, warriors of the Divine Light and Fighting League could come to the Cloud Sea Star as well. Somehow, this planet had become the communication center of different forces, a crucial place. With a number of more than 10,000 warriors of the Fiery Rain Star area here, the other forces in Shadow Ghostly Prison didn't dare to mess up with the Cloud Sea Star. With the Fighting League's backup, no one would come here to court death. The Cloud Sea Star had been appropriately arranged, but Zi Yao and the Divine Light experts hadn't left yet. They wanted to stay and widen their knowledge when Leona came back. They did want to learn the art of commanding corps. Shi Yan didn't oppose, so Ju Bo and Sana were happy. They found some islets to stay as guests here. Xia Xinyan and Miao Rong hadn't left yet, so the warriors of the Windstorm and Water Moon War Department were also settled on the Cloud Sea Star. They had the same thought as Ju Bo and Sana. They wanted to exchange the excellent tactics and strategic disposition of troops with Benny and Leona. Of course, Zi Yao and Xia Xinyan wouldn't neglect Shi Yan. They often met up with him, talking about cultivating methods to seize the chance to be with him. Time flew hurriedly, and half a month passed by. Within this period, when Leona hadn't arrived yet, Benny had taken the Fiery Rain Star area warriors to play with him. He had applied many strange and rare methods to train the troops, some of which were unimaginable. For example, he let some warriors with the same power Upanishad use a secret technique to connect their soul altars, which would combine their powers when attacking or defending. Benny had some secret techniques that could connect people closely. They worked and gave rise to incredible attacks indeed. He also arranged the warriors with power Upanishads that could support each other into smaller stations. The powers they used could support each other magically. At the same time, he did prepare the formation using different weapons and armors, and also some odd dispositions. Benny had them all in his head. He just lacked experiences. Today, as he got the Fiery Rain Star area's volunteers for his practice, he was so happy that he didn't feel tired at all. Xiaoen and Yushan had paid close attention. In the beginning, they couldn't ease their mind because they didn't know what he was doing. However, after 10 days, when they saw how powerful their soldiers were when they applied Benny's techniques, they immediately decided to make their troops cooperate their best with Benny, no matter how hard he wanted them to play in the field. They could ease their minds now, and even thought that if Leona didn't arrive, Benny here would be enough to transform the corps they brought here into a mighty force that could resist the God Clan. For half a month, Shi Yan often took a walk with Xia Xinyan and Zi Yao around the Cloud Sea Star. When they had free time, they would go to watch the sky and the ocean, putting aside the worries of chaos and the threat from the God Clan. It was a rare chance for them to relax their tense nerves. Shi Yan sometimes tried to understand his power Upanishads as well. Unexpectedly, he did harvest something. Under the state of his calm mind and soul, when he let go of everything to understand the magnificent natural sights around, it seemed easier to increase his realm. This finding surprised and cheered him up. All of a sudden, he recognized that he had never had a quiet moment in his life. And he actually needed time to relax. He should stop somewhere to admire the beauty of nature and let his heart and soul feel at peace. While he sometimes had a flash of recognition of his powers, the tier of power Upanishads in his soul altar would be sparkling with starlight. At the same time, his life and death power Upanishad seemed to generate something magical. He wouldn't try to put his mind to study them, just enjoying those fleeting glimpses. In this state, he felt his soul slowly sublimate. His ethereal extent had some changes as he reached the second sky of ethereal god realm. He suddenly realized that when he had his soul and body relaxed this time, it was a rare spiritual baptism for him. He really needed this kind of calmness and peace to increase and strengthen his realm. This kind of peaceful and relaxing life also cheered up Zi Yao and Xia Xianyan. After the small quarrels they used to have in the beginning, they had become calmer. Sometimes, when they went with Shi Yan to watch the clouds changing in the sky, they could stay silent for a long time as they just simply enjoyed the sweet, comfy moment with their loved one. It wasn't a short time since the two women had known Shi Yan. However, they had never had a moment when they could ease their mind and enjoy the natural attractions around with Shi Yan. The days and nights they had spent with this man had always been accompanied by fighting, running, magical encounters, and dangers. There were very little moments they could just stand and enjoy the magic of life without worrying about the chaos behind. The quiet and cozy life in this cloud sea star was what they had always yearned for. Just like Shi Yan, they also had the chance to relax and open their mind to comprehend the mysteries of their powers Upanishads. They felt that their souls being purified and something had changed in their soul altars as well. This wonderful feeling was hard to describe. Unfortunately, the happy days couldn't last long. On this day, while they were standing on the reef to watch the immense sea with many white waves, they heard Xiaoan screaming. Many warriors of the fiery rain star area were gathering on the gourd-shaped island far from them. The battleships that had anchored and emerged undersea also floated up. Xiao En and Yishan wore a solemn face as they were observing the sky. "What's going on?" Ziyao's face was cold. "Someone comes to provoke us." She felt irritated because her peaceful days were disturbed. She did want to shout and curse. Yeah, if it were not someone coming, Xiaoan wouldn't be that cautious. While frowning, Shi Yan said, "It should be someone mighty who can threaten Xiaoan. Let me check it out." Then, while closing his eyes, Shi Yan sent a wisp of his soul consciousness, which flew like a space saber that could cut off the sky, disappearing into the void. After 10 breaths, his eyes slowly darkened. It's the Potion and Tool Pavilion as the main force. They also have the Fire Clan, Crystal Clan, and Ice Clan, with around 2,000 battleships and 30,000 warriors. Xia Xianyan and Zi Yao changed their complexion. They are the force of second Elder Gu He, right? Xia Xianyan threw Zi Yao a glance. A couple days ago, I received the information saying that the Elder Conference of the Potion and Tool Pavilion ended. Zuo Lu didn't participate in that conference. When we returned from the space passage, Zuo Lu had taken his subordinates and disappeared. No one knows where he is now. He sure knows his fate if the Potion and Tool Pavilion will chase and exterminate him. He has taken action and avoided the danger. With Zuo Lu's absence in the Elder Conference, second Elder Gu He took the control. He has vaguely replaced the Pavilion Master. I don't know the details, though. Although Feng Yan was there, she's not a member of the Potion and Tool Pavilion, so she couldn't join the conference. But I heard that Fu Wei, Bettina, and Jia Duo failed. Fu Wei has to face the wall and reflect on herself. Xia Xianyan frowned deeply while talking. We don't know what happened inside the Potion and Tool Pavilion structure. The only thing we can confirm is that the ruling party of the pavilion now isn't Bettina or Fu Wei. It's second Elder Gu He. Gu He? Shi Yan contemplated, then looked at Zi Yao. Gu He and the Divine Light had a close relationship. He thought if Xia Xianyan knew about the issues of the Potion and Tool Pavilion, Zi Yao must know something as well. Gu He's the second elder of the Potion and Tool Pavilion. His power in the Potion and Tool Pavilion isn't less than Great Elder Zuo Lu. Today, the cooperation between Zuo Lu and the Dark Shadow Clan has been exposed, so he has lost his party and the ally. Gu He now naturally controls everything. Third Elder Bettina doesn't have a strong background, so she couldn't face Gu He. This time, it wasn't beyond our expectation that Gu He won in the Elder Conference. Zi Yao thought and then said, something had happened back in the Elder Conference. But we don't know the details. We just know that Gu He keeps the Potion and Tool Pavilion's cannon now. The one with the cannon will be the master of the Potion and Tool Pavilion, right? Xia Xianyan changed her visage. Yeah, The former pavilion master of the potion and tool pavilion had his soul vanished. He's not different from a dead warrior now. With the cannon, Gu only needs to carry out the last ceremony and ritual, and he can be the newly elected pavilion master. Xiao nodded. Doesn't it say that the one who found the cannon could step on the glorious throne of the pavilion master? Shiyan was confused. I guess Gu found some reason to blame Fu Wei for something. Otherwise, he couldn't have taken the cannon from her. In short, the current master of the potion and tool pavilion is Gu. If not, it would not have been easy for our divine light to enter the shadow ghostly prison. Gu had arranged everything. My teacher has carried out his plan, said Ziyao. Then, why does Gu come to Cloud Sea Star? From his momentum, I guess he is aiming at the Fiery Rain Star area warriors. Xia Xinyan was also confused. We will know shortly. Shiyan stood up. Starlight swirled around him like a sprinkle which condensed into small meteors. He then shot out in the direction of the gourd-shaped island. Xia Xinyan and Ziyao followed him immediately. Chapter 1084. Gu. Chapter 1084. Gu. __. The Potion and Tool Pavilion's battleships emerged from the thick clouds of the Cloud Sea Star, putting pressure on the small sea area underneath. The heavy, mountain-like pressure came from the warriors on the battleships with so many giant, crystalline artilleries. The energy inside those artilleries was brimming as if they could fire at any minute. The battleships of the Fire Clan, Crystal Clan, and Ice Clan surrounded the Cloud Sea Star from 3 different major directions. They blocked the sky, releasing their intimidating auras. Second Elder Gu of Potion and Tool Pavilion was close to the Fire Clan, Crystal Clan, and Ice Clan. He also had a close relationship with the forces like Divine Light. He was a mighty character who had the competence to resist Great Elder Zuelu. Right now, as Zuelu had fallen, he had to live like a stray dog. No one knew where he was hiding. Gu became an overlord, the official representative of the Potion and Tool Pavilion. It was his time now to rule over all the offices of the Potion and Tool Pavilion. Xiaoen, Yushan, and the warriors of the Fiery Rain Star area were looking at the sky with stern and dark complexions. Many battleships of the Fiery Rain Star area were mobilized from the nearby islands and in the sea area. They flew up while releasing a hazy halo. All things were ready to engage in the coming battle. Right at this moment, Shiyan glided like a meteor over the sky and appeared above the gourd-shaped island. Miaorong, Jubo, Sana, and the experts of the Divine Light and Fighting League also gathered up. They were so surprised on seeing the Potion and Tool Pavilion's battleships emerging. An orange-red, crystalline war chariot, which was strangely beautiful and yet luxurious, appeared with dazzling light. It carried a lot of strange divine crystals. An obese man squinted his small eyes while watching the warriors gathering underneath and maneuvering his war chariot to approach the other. That man was a human. At first glance, he appeared like a flesh mountain, with the fat in his body bouncing as he moved. The loose garments on his body were precious, but they couldn't cover the fat and flesh of his body. They looked as if they could burst off at any minute. This man had big ears, a round face, and a pair of bizarrely small eyes. If they didn't observe carefully, they couldn't even have seen his eyes. His fat had pressed and deformed his facial features. Gu. Xia Xinyan called him. Shiyan arched his brows, looking at Gu while putting up his guard. Jubo and Sana of the Divine Light hesitated when they saw this plump of flesh. However, they still stepped out and greeted him. Gu squinted his small eyes, trying to pull a smile. He nodded to Jubo, talking gently. You guys are all here. It's good then. Jubo and Sana didn't understand a thing. Gu looked at Xiaoen and Yushan, his eyes getting colder. He shouted all of a sudden. Why did you people of the Fiery Rain Star area come here without permission? Who allowed you to cross the border? You've brought more than 10,000 warriors and several battleships. Are you declaring war on our Agate Star area? Hearing him, everybody was startled. The battleships of the Fire Clan, Ice Clan, and Crystal Clan were anchored not far from them. They silently moved, sending sharp auras to this area. They were ready to engage in a battle. Xiao En and Yushan frowned while exchanging looks, their faces darkening. We came to Agate Star Area because we have an agreement with someone in your star area. We don't have any bad intention towards the Agate Star Area. Yushan hesitated for a while before pitching her cold voice. It has nothing to do with your potion and tool pavilion, right? Is the potion and tool pavilion the owner of the entire Agate Star Area? Do we need your permission to enter the area? The Fiery Rain Star Area and our Agate Star Area don't get along well. Gu smiled coldly. He snorted, then continued. We used to fight fiercely back in the days. Our Gu family had laid down our lives to withstand one family of the Fiery Rain Star Area. Afterward, the space passage that connected the two star areas was sealed. We do have an unwritten agreement that no party is allowed to trespass the other's territory. Today, you guys have come without any precaution. We can consider it to be your war declaration. Gu family. Xiaoan was surprised as he sneered. Turns out it's that Gu family. Haha, that family had been almost exterminated. I didn't expect someone from that family could rise again. Who are you? Gu had a cold and harsh look. I'm Xiaoan. Haha, that year, your Gu family was beaten up by my Xiao family. I guess you've heard about your ancestors' humiliation, right? Haha. Xiao En laughed like crazy. Gu had an extremely cold face while his eyes showed his deep grudge. He gazed at Xiao En for a while and then thundered. We give you half a month to leave this place. Otherwise, we'll consider it as your declaration of war. We will unite to kill all of you. Mr. Gu. Jubo frowned. They didn't come here to attack the Agate Star Area. They have some other plan. Cut it off. Gu swung his hand, talking unreasonably. They are from the Fiery Rain Star Area. Anyone who accompanies them will be the Agate Star Area's traitor. I will talk to your Divine Lights Master. You guys should help us deal with those aliens or just step aside. Don't cause trouble to the Divine Light. Jubo changed his face. His cold eyes sparkled, but he didn't talk more. Miaorong and Xia Xan Yen also frowned. They then discussed quietly, but they didn't give an opinion. The Fighting League and Elder Bettina had a close relationship. However, they didn't like the Great Elder and Second Elder. If they joined this talk, it would lead to an adverse result. Gu would treat them harsher. Apparently, because Zhuo Lu was crossed out, Gu became the overlord of the Potion and Tool Pavilion after the Elder Conference. Gu and Fire Clan, Ice Clan, and Crystal Clan had a close relationship. With the agreement of the three great clans, and the allies in the Divine Light, and the other strong forces, Gu could be arrogant, because his time had finally come. Turning one's back on him at this moment wasn't a wise move. However, Gu didn't dare to declare war that simply. The total warriors of the Potion and Tool Pavilion, Crystal Clan, Fire Clan, and Ice Clan were around 30,000. Although they outnumbered the other, Yushan and Xiaoan's force had more ethereal god realm experts. This fight would relate to the war between two star areas. If it were triggered, with more incipient god realm experts, the Potion and Tool Pavilion might win. However, it would be a strenuous triumph as they would lose a lot of experts. After that, they would have to face the anger of the Fiery Rain Star Area when they sent more forces to take revenge. The warriors that Yushan and Xiaoan had brought here weren't from the same force. They came from different clans and different forces. It would cause a great trouble indeed. If they were killed here, the war between two star areas, the Agate Star Area and the Fiery Rain Star Area, would explode immediately, clearing up everybody. Although Gu was haughty, he wasn't impulsive. He didn't dare to act rashly. I just want to know one thing. Does the Potion and Tool Pavilion have the power to decide things in Agate Star Area? Yushan asked coldly. It's not that our Potion and Tool Pavilion can decide the fate of the star area. I've talked to the forces everywhere. Fire Clan, Crystal Clan, Wood Clan, Ice Clan, and Ghostmark Clan all think that if they let 10,000 warriors of the Fiery Rain Star Area stay in Agate Star Area, they won't be able to sleep well. If you don't want to leave, we will expel you, said Gu. Did you talk to the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, and Fighting League? Shurian asked all of a sudden after keeping silent for a long time. Kid, who are you? Guhi's eyes were cold. You are only at the original God Realm. Do you think you have the right to intervene? My first name is Shur, and my last name is Yen. While frowning, Shiryen said, I think you've heard of my name before, eh? Guhi's eyes had a gleam of surprise, which he hid immediately. He then talked with a stiff face. Never heard of you before. I don't need to talk to you. He looked at Miaorong and Xia Xinyan, his face getting less tense. I've talked to Feng Han. He said he didn't care about anything here. About the Monster Clan and Demon Clan, because of the far distance, I'm still trying to reach to them. I think they would agree with my decision. It's 10,000 people from a strange star area coming to the Agate star area. This potential danger's really big. We can't bear the unexpected events, if any. We must expel them. Guhi was determined to shoo them away. Miaorong and Xia Xinyan were bewildered. With a begrudging complexion, they didn't say anything. Since Guhi got the authority of the Potion and Tool Pavilion, of course, Feng Han would give him face. He didn't say anything, but it didn't mean he agreed. However, from what Guhi told them, Feng Han had agreed with his operation. The atmosphere became tense. The Potion and Tool Pavilion brought the Fire Clan, Ice Clan, and Crystal Clan to this area with massive momentum. They looked as if they would fire up at any moment. Yushan and Shaoan's force wasn't bad. If they had to fight, they wouldn't be afraid. However, it would be tough to return to Fiery Rain Star area. At this moment, the Agate Star area didn't need to face the God Clan's attack, while the Fiery Rain Star area still had to engage in the war. Although Yushan and Xiaoan felt irritated, they couldn't afford the possible losses in this area. You tell me, Yushan turned to Shiryen all of a sudden, talking begrudgingly, we arrived here as you promised us. We just want to improve our Corps' competence. What we need are talented field commanders like Leona and Benny. If they can come to our Fiery Rain Star area, we can go back now. We must seal the space passage connecting to Fiery Rain Star area. Guhi shouted coldly. Your Fiery Rain Star area is having a terrible fight with the God Clan. If the God Clan comes here through the space passage connecting your Fiery Rain Star area, it will be a catastrophe to our star area. Thus, when you leave, we will absolutely seal the barrier. We will not have any connection anymore. Hearing Guhi, all the people on the gourd-shaped island had a grimace. Once they sealed the passage between the Fiery Rain Star area and Agate Star area, the connection between the two star areas would be cut off. If Leona and Benny got there, they wouldn't be able to return. Of course, it didn't suit Shiryan's thought and benefit. In his eyes, the God Clan was the biggest enemy. The Agate Star area should join hands with the Fiery Rain Star area to resist the God Clan. The Fiery Rain Star area had many experiences and information about the God Clan. So, they could help figure out how to deal with the enemy. And at the same time, the Ascot family was fabricating the secret treasure to clear the space passage connecting to Agate Star area. Once they got it done, the Agate Star area would have to face the Ascot family of the God Clan immediately. If they could have this ally from the Fiery Rain Star area, they could exchange information and forces, which was good to both sides. If they fought alone, they would be smashed and their star areas would be occupied. Shiryan's face was getting colder. He lifted his head to look at Guhi of the Potion and Tool Pavilion. It's me who gave Fu Wei the Potion and Tool Pavilion's cannon. According to the rules, Fu Wei's the official master of your pavilion. You're just an elder. Do you think you can stand here and bluster? Chapter 1085, Soul Incantations. Chapter 1085, Soul Incantations, _ Yushan, Xiaoan, Miaorong, and Jubo were astounded, their eyes strange. Everybody here was heavy-hearted because of Guhi. As they had to think for the welfare of the forces behind them, they didn't dare to confront Guhi directly. Because Guhi represented the Potion and Tool Pavilion. Shiryen was indifferent. He didn't care about the superb position of Potion and Tool Pavilion in Agate Star area. He directly questioned the dubiety of Guhi and his power. Guhi paled. Some warriors with profound realms and cultivation bases behind him were filled with rage and murderous intentions. One of them was at Second Sky of Incipient God Realm, a hidden consecrator of Potion and Tool Pavilion whose name was Eno. This expert cultivated soul incantations. Eno frowned, his eyes suddenly as dark as the bottomless abyss. He gazed at Shiryen. A strange, malicious soul energy that could pull the soul altar out of the body immediately fastened to Shuryan's soul, trying to pull his soul out of his body. Yushan and Xiao En discolored. Xia Xian Yen and Ziyai turned cold. Slow down! A clear but cold voice arose. Layers of magical energy rippled. Time suddenly slowed down. The operating rules of everything were forced to change. The spiritual energy of the soul-cursing technique casted by Ino was also affected. The energy that tied Shuryan's soul became slow and powerless. The pulling force applied to Shuryan's soul was reduced massively. Ino had a handsome face. He didn't look old, but his eyes were deep and archaic, hiding some unknown magic. His handsome face twitched and changed gloomily. Green light dots flew out like the ignis fatuus from his eyes. A soul curse was released from his eyes, and it hit the targeted soul hard. Boom! Xia Xian Yan's brain was shaken hard as if she had gotten hit by lightning. Her sea of consciousness blasted and shattered. She couldn't gather her soul consciousness again. She paled while her soft body shook badly. The god power of her body was running out. Her time power Upanishad dissolved. Ino's soul incantation continued to tie Shuryan's soul and attempted to pull it out. Xiao En and Yushan had cold faces as they took action. A sea of fire seethed in the void. Shortly after, it covered this area. Inside the sea, thunderbolts moved like winding dragons that vented out their anger. The soul incantation that Ino had cast was burned. Its energy was consumed by the fire, and its will was smashed by the thunderbolt. It dissolved instantaneously. Ino's beautiful face was colder. He couldn't help but snort. He didn't attack the second time and turned to see Gu He. Gu He shook his head slightly, his small eyes deceitful and malignant. Fu Wei violated the regulation of Potion and Tool Pavilion. She's forced to face the wall and reflect on her mistakes. The elders of Potion and Tool Pavilion had discussed, and we all agreed that she doesn't have the right to keep the cannon. We don't have any other option around. I will now keep it. Gu He scanned the crowd and spoke arrogantly. This is our internal matter. I can't tell you the details. You just need to know one thing. I have full authority to represent Potion and Tool Pavilion. After that, he didn't care about Shuryan anymore, so he didn't give him an explanation for Ino's attack. He swung his hand impatiently. We'll give you time to prepare. Please leave. Otherwise, when your time is up and you're still here, we won't be polite anymore. Shuryan now had cold and harsh eyes. He touched his forehead. Death energy was released, which cleared the remnant of the soul incantation in his brain. Turning around, he walked to Xia Xian Yen and asked with great care, "Are you all right?" Xia Xian Yen smiled and lifted her head to look at Ino standing by Gu He. She lowered her voice. "He didn't dare to harm me." Shuryan's face was malicious. He nodded and then lifted his face. "I found the cannon. I handed it to Fu Wei of Potion and Tool Pavilion. I feel so annoyed today. I want to take it back. Return the cannon to me." Gu He's eyes were scornful. He stooped and glanced with disdain. "The cannon belongs to Potion and Tool Pavilion. No matter where it has drifted to, it's a halidom of us. No matter who gets it, it still belongs to Potion and Tool Pavilion." Moreover, Elder Fu Wei had paid fully for the cannon. "According to our Potion and Tool Pavilion's business regulations, our deal was closed. The cannon has nothing to do with you now. You won't hand it back to me?" Shuryan pondered for a while. "I'll take it myself." Crack! Crack! A faint blue ring on his fat middle finger sounded with a crunch. The surface of the ring cracked. Something wiggled out of the ring directly and shot away. A thin slit appeared, and that object swayed into that slit before it closed shortly afterward. Gu He and the other warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion grimaced. They all looked at Shuryan hostilely. The murderous intention in their eyes couldn't be hidden. "Well, I have a good habit," Shuryan looked innocently. "When I deliver anything precious, I always attach a restriction. Especially such things like this cannon, I have to be more cautious." Before Shuryan knew the cannon's identity, he had seen its magical features. As a routine, he had left a wisp of his soul consciousness with space power. That way, he could use space power Upanishad to track the thing down. Fu Wei didn't know that because she didn't check the status of the cannon. He thought that he would never have a chance to use that restriction. It turned out the changing situation made him do so. Fu Wei was currently grounded. He didn't expect that the cannon would fall into a cunning person like Gu He. He didn't believe that Fu Wei would violate rules. Everything Fu Wei had done, she did it for Agate Star Area to eliminate the Trader of Potion and Tool Pavilion. She didn't do anything that made her ashamed. Shi Yan understood that Fu Wei was tricked. Gu He had set her up for something or made up a false accusation. In short, Shi Yan knew that it was Gu He who was behind all these things. If Fu Wei kept the cannon, he wouldn't say anything. However, as Gu He controlled Potion and Tool Pavilion now, of course, Shi Yan couldn't just defend without attacking. You dare to do something on the cannon of our Potion and Tool Pavilion. Gu He twisted his face. His layers of fat rattled, which made him look like a giant maggot. Swish! The corner of Shi Yan's eyes had a slit. He rose his hand to grab the void, and the cannon was now in his hand. If you want to take the cannon back, tell Fu Wei to meet me. You don't deserve to keep this thing. Shi Yan spoke curtly and impolitely. He nodded to Fei Lan and Ka Tua behind him. Go to Devil Blood Star and call Precursor Blood Devil. I want to see if Gu He can control everything in Agate Star Area. Fei Lan and Ka Tua nodded quietly. Their figures flashed and disappeared in the child formation. Thousands of Fiery Rain Star Area warriors with Xiao En and Yushan gathered around the child formation. Even if Gu He wanted to stop them, he couldn't do anything. He could only see Fei Lan and Ka Tua leave. Kid, you've interfered with Potion and Tool Pavilion's internal issue. You have taken our cannon. Your sins can't be forgiven. Gu He took a deep breath and nodded to Ino and then shouted, kill him for me. Ino's deep and dark eyes had a strange light. The corners of his mouth moved as he was about to cast the soul incantation. Xiao En and Yushan snorted. They swayed and stopped by Shi Yan. They all looked at Gu He and Ino with cold, malicious eyes. Do you really want to fight with our Agate Star Area? Gu He shouted with a cold complexion. You can't stand for the entire Agate Star Area. You can't represent Potion and Tool Pavilion either. You can speak on behalf of yourself only. Shi Yan sneered. It's true that the Fire Clan, Ice Clan, and Crystal Clan have sent their soldiers to cooperate with you, but I don't think the three big forces would bet the future of their entire clan on you, Gu He. The Fire Clan, Ice Clan, and Crystal Clan in Agate Star Area were all mighty clans, especially the Fire Clan as it could resist the Monster Clan and Demon Clan. It was the strongest force. Ice Clan and Crystal Clan were a little weaker, but not by much. If the three clans followed Gu He, it would be very difficult. It was too bad that the Fire Clan, Ice Clan, and Crystal Clan didn't send any elders to this operation. As they didn't send any strong warriors with high positions here, it meant that they weren't dependent on Gu He. It was just a cooperative activity between them. It was just a collaborative relationship. Of course, they wouldn't risk their lives under the circumstance that they couldn't have any profits. Thus, Shi Yan didn't believe that the Fire Clan, Ice Clan, and Crystal Clan would risk their lives with Yushan and Xiao En for Gu He. Indeed, Gu He grimaced more upon hearing Shi Yan. Ino took action again. This time, he was still discreet. Shi Yan stood still, holding a blood broadsword in his hand. The blood eyes on the sword started to wiggle. Blood beamed across the sword, spreading like gossamers and covering Shi Yan's shortly. Some kind of energy that could seal the soul, sea of consciousness, and the soul altar was released from Shi Yan. However, Yushan and Si couldn't sense anything. Although Ino had mastered the soul incantation and he had released many deadly curses, he couldn't block Shi Yan's sea of consciousness. They could only float around his body, but they couldn't find the entrance. Divine weapon. Ino discolored. He gazed at the blood broadsword that Shi Yan was holding in his hand. His dark eyes changed strangely while he was casting his secret incantation. He wanted to affect the energy of the blood sword. Boom! A brutal, evil energy shot out from the blood sword. It was like an immense blood sea attacking his soul. Ino's deep eyes had a gleam of fear. He also looked aghast. The strange eyes on the blood sword opened. The blood beams had locked Ino from a distance. The sword was like a ferocious monster that was accumulating energy to storm over Ino. Ino's consciousness was hazy. He hastened to stop his incantation and tried to steady his sea of consciousness and soul altar. His face grimaced. Rolls of fat on Guhi's face shivered as he was scared. He studied Shiryen. He had heard of the name Shiryen earlier. In Potion and Tool Pavilion's Elder Conference, this name was spoken together with Bath, Gute of the Monster Clan, and Blood Devil of the Demon Clan. It was mentioned more times than even Bath and Gute. Being the second elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion, how could he not know about Shiryen? However, he had underestimated Shiryen's abilities. Holding the blood sword, Shiryen's eyes were as scarlet as blood. His appearance was extremely cold and harsh. He indifferently looked at Ino and Guhi and didn't say a thing. He was waiting. He was waiting for experts of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan. It would be more favorable for him when they came. Xiao En and Yushan were so astounded to look at the evil deeds he was using. They stood on his left and right and were ready to protect him. They knew that when the experts of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan arrived, the wind on this Cloud Sea star would change. Chapter 1086. The Fate Traveler. Chapter 1086. The Fate Traveler, _ Ino's eyes were cold and blurry like ice while he was controlling his wisps of soul consciousness, which moved like invisible spiritual snakes. They all aimed at Shiryen. However, the soul incantation he had cast was going to deviate if they aimed at Shiryen. Without Shiryen's soul energy waves to detect, his curses couldn't perform. Shiryen held the blood sword in his hand while the blood beam spread all over his body and created a thick blood cocoon that covered his body. Nothing could intrude. The soul's secret techniques couldn't lock him, so the incantation couldn't work anymore. Ino was so irritated, and he wanted to vomit blood. This was the first time he had ever encountered a bizarre situation like this along his path of cultivating soul incantations. He knew that the blood sword Shiryen was holding was strange and evil indeed. He also knew the reason why his secret curses couldn't work. It was because of that blood sword. However, as Yushan and Xiaoan were watching cautiously, he couldn't storm over to snatch that blood sword. Apparently, he couldn't use the secret techniques to kill Shiryen. The fat on Guhi's face shivered. His small eyes flared with ferocious light and gazed at Shiryen with deep resentment. His Gu family and the Xiao family of Fiery Rainstar area had a bloody grudge. Since Guhi was just a small child, he had listened to the teachings of his ancestor. He must make Xiaoan's family pay a big price. Thus, Guhi hated anyone who came from Fiery Rainstar area. This time, it was coincidental that Xiaoan was in this group. Guhi wouldn't let this chance slip away. Shiryen! Xia Xin Yen and Zi Yao called him with worried faces. They hurried to approach him to check his situation. Staying inside the fine blood fibers, Shiryen looked cold. He squinted and shook his head to tell Zi Yao and Xia Xin Yen not to worry about him. This man robbed Potion and Tool Pavilion's cannon. Do you outsiders want to interfere in the internal issues of our Potion and Tool Pavilion? Guhi's face was cold, but he couldn't hold his flame of anger anymore. He glared at Yushan and spoke, "If you mean it, don't blame Potion and Tool Pavilion for not showing mercy." Guhi's mentality was almost cracked. Yushan and Xiaoan could recognize Guhi's mental state. They frowned quietly. They were also anxious as they continued to turn around to check the child formation. They hoped that the experts of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan could come here soon. Guhi took a deep breath. He seemed to have made up his mind. He swung his hand as he'd prepared to start this battle, his face cold and harsh. However, his big mouth parted as if he was about to talk, but he couldn't make a sound. Guhi's big face winced and piled up the rolls of fat. His eyes were aghast. He looked really awkward. Many warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion surrounding the area were bewildered. They looked at him confused as they didn't know why he couldn't make a sound although he was obviously shouting. Guhi started to sweat. His face slowly paled. His column-like, big neck wiggled as if he was searching for something. Warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion, Divine Light, Fighting League, and Fiery Rainstar area were dumbstruck. They also followed his line of sight to see what was going on. Guhi suddenly stopped. He looked in a direction. It was where Shiryen was standing. The eyes of dozens of thousands of warriors were now gazing at one spot, which was next to Shiryen. No one knew for how long there was a white-headed, archaic old man standing next to Shiryen. That old man wore a silver robe. His brows were long and white like mist. His eyes were filled with a smile. And his face was especially smooth as it was like white jade. It seemed like he was still pretty young. He was holding a scepter, which looked like a branch of an old, dead tree. The wooden material of his scepter was strange. It could release the energy waves of life. The arms of the old man had many magical wooden textures. Those textures were strange and wonderful. However, they looked exactly the same as the texture of his scepter, which seemed to contain some principles of this world. This old man was a member of the Wood clan. Holding the scepter, the old man was smiling while studying Shiryen. Sometimes, he touched the blood-fine fibers on his body and gave profuse praises. At this moment, the numbers of experts on the gourd-shaped island were as many as clusters of cloud in the sky, which included more than 10 first sky and second sky of incipient god realm experts. However, before Gu spotted the archaic man, no one had recognized the old man was there. Everybody was astounded as they could never have imagined something like this. They all looked at the white-haired wood oldie. The oldie ignored all of them. He was still studying Shiryen with great curiosity. His pair of eyes was full of childhood interest and warmth. He didn't have any malicious intent. However, under his gaze, Shiryen felt very irritated. It felt like the old man could read all that he had experienced in his life easily. The eyes of that old man seemed to be able to see through people's hearts and all of their experiences they had in their whole life. From a distance, Gu looked at them. In his rice-sized eyes, he seemed to be begging as if he couldn't even talk without permission from that old man. Standing by Shiryen, Yushan and Xiao-En were so solemn looking at the old man. They exchanged looks as they could grasp the fear in each other's eyes. All of a sudden, Yushan and Xiao-En bent their bodies to greet and say, "Precursor." Then, they stood with their bodies bending and didn't say more. Miaorong of the Fighting League and Ju Bo of the Divine Light studied the old man and tried to find information of him in their brains. Shortly after, Ju Bo shivered, divine light shooting out of his eyes. His eyes were glued to the wooden scepter in the old man's hand. He muttered, "It's made of the life tree of the Wood clan. A precursor of the Wood clan. Shang-Qin. Great sage Shang-Qin." His voice was so low that the others around couldn't hear. Only Sana heard him. Sana was skeptical and lowered his voice. "Who is he?" "Fate. The Fate Traveler." Ju Bo forced a smile. Sana discolored in fright. Gu was still begging, looking at the wood old man. Shiryen pulled himself together. He suddenly found that Ino's soul incantation was cleared while he didn't recognize it. He looked at Ino, who was wincing with trickles of blood on the corners of his mouth. He looked hurt and was begging. He was baffled and couldn't help but look at the wood old man next to him. Frowning, Shiryen said, "May I ask what you want, Precursor?" The wood old man smiled, his left eye blinking. Instantaneously, Gu who was fixed over there was able to stammer, "Great Sage." Why are you here?" "Great Sage." Many people looked bewildered. They looked at the wood old man and tried to identify him. Miaorong of Fighting League was shocked. Dazzling light shot out from his eyes. When he looked at the old man again, his face was filled with respect. He bent his body slightly to show his respect for a junior and didn't say more. "I'm here to save your life." The wood old man shook his head, looked at Gu and sighed. "Your Gu family has declined for several thousand years. Until your generation, no one made a raise. Why do you want to find trouble for yourself? Do you really want your Gu family to be uprooted?" Listening to him, Guhi's face turned gray like the earth. However, he bought it. Just like a primary student asking for his teacher's advice, he said, "Great Sage, please explain to me." "Okay." The wood old man smiled and pointed at Shiryen, his voice slow and tender. "If I didn't come, here's what would have happened. You guys would fight with the warriors of Fiery Rain Star Area. Fiery Rain Star Area would fail. However, when the Monster Clan and Demon Clan comes, both of you would have gotten huge losses. Then, the people of Fiery Rain Star Area would have left. You guys would also expel this young man to Fiery Rain Star area. However, in 100 years max, he would return. He would eradicate your Gu family. You, Gu He, would be killed too. The old man spoke casually, but many people didn't believe him. They thought he just spoke nonsense. However, second elder Gu He of the Potion and Tool Pavilion felt like he had just fallen into an ice chamber. He saw his death in advance. He paled and shook uncontrollably. He just stood there, shivering with an extreme fear. He had no doubt of what the old man had just told him. When he saw Shiryen again, Gu He was panic-stricken. He looked both crazy and perplexed. Oh, I can add one more thing, the wood old man sighed. If you started this battle, Fiery Rain Star area and Agate Star area would be involved. The Star War would happen. And the God Clan could invade Agate Star area and Fiery Rain Star area in 200 or 300 years. He pointed at Miaorong, Jubo, Yushan, Xiaoen, and Ino. He spoke nonchalantly. All of you would have died in the battles. Those people under his finger felt their souls shudder. They were so frightened as they could foresee their future. You say it as if they're all true, Shiryen smiled oddly. It's really bad that you're not a hoax medium. Oh no, I'm the biggest hoax medium in Agate Star area. The old man grinned, his makings relaxed. But many people believe in this hoax medium. Because what I've told you could be your future. Great sage, I'm wrong. The second elder changed his visage and bowed deeply. He acted repentantly and earnestly. Everybody was stunned. Sigh. If it's not related to the fate of the 2-star areas, I don't need to spend my efforts to calculate and make people skeptical. The wood old man shook his head. The wooden scepter in his hand released extreme energy waves that could affect people's souls and gave them a hallucination that made their souls collapse. Shiryen wasn't an exception. Yushan and Xiaoen discolored in fright. Please advise us your status and title? Xiaoen hesitated for a while before asking with respect. I'm Shangchen, said the wood old man faintly. Shangchen. Shangchen. You are the fate traveler who cultivates fate power Upanishad? You've been to our Fiery Rain Star area, right? Xiaoen was suddenly excited. He asked with his arm swinging, I know you. The secret books of the Xiao family mentioned you many times. I've traveled through many star areas. Not only your Fiery Rain Star area. Shangchen smiled. Oh, right. I used to drink with Xiaozhan. Xiaozhan was Xiaoen's grandfather. However, he had fallen in the battle with the God Clan. Shangchen's profile in the books of the Xiao family was written by Xiaozhan. Oh, turns out it's you, Precursor Shang. Xiaoen was happy. He showed more respect. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. While Xiaoen was thrilled, the child formation behind him activated. Beautiful halos expanded. The experts of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan emerged with Bath, Gute, and Blood Devil as the leaders. The three of them were full of murderous auras and ferocious faces. They came for a bloody battle. More and more monster and demon experts came unceasingly. Gu He discolored. He glanced at Shangchen, his face modest. He just stood quietly and didn't dare to pitch his voice to ask for a battle anymore. Chapter 1087. Great Sage. Chapter 1087. Great Sage, _ Blood Devil, Gute, and Bath were annoyed because Leona wanted to leave. When Fei Lan and Ka Tua told them the situation where Gu He of Potion and Tool Pavilion wanted to attack Shiryen, they grumbled and came like thunder. Warriors of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan all wore heavy armor with fearsome iron helmets. Their murderous auras shot out like sharp tips. When hundreds of monster and demon warriors lined up neatly, a flow of bloodthirsty aura gushed out like an overflowing river. There was no emotion on Leona's daunting face. She looked cold and harsh, her eyes radiating a dark halo. After those monster and demon warriors had undergone her training, they seemed to be dyed with blood. This kind of thick blood scent nauseated people. The warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion faced the soldiers behind Leona with fear. Blood Devil, Gute, and Bath stood arrogantly in the front. Standing behind him were some first sky of incipient God Realm experts. They were all heroes of monster and demon clans. Their auras were like the rainbow, their energies fierce and abundant. It wasn't like when they had entered Shadow Ghostly Prison where only Blood Devil, Bath, and Gute were incipient God Realm expert. Of course, back then, there were only 3 incipient God Realm experts of Monster Clan and Demon Clan. Since they had other important roles, they didn't join the trip to Shadow Ghostly Prison. It was different today. When they knew Potion and Tool Pavilion had taken the Fire Clan, Ice Clan, and Crystal Clan to this place with around 30,000 warriors, Blood Devil and the others had to mobilize the experts of their clans. There were 9 incipient God Realm experts from Monster Clan and Demon Clan, including Blood Devil and the other 2, and more than 10 experts at Ethereal God Realm. Although there were just several hundred warriors who came here this time, they were all from the elite force. What happened? Blood Devil's voice was like a bronze bell that rang. He coldly glared at Gu. Congratulations, Second Elder, for your higher position. However, Potion and Tool Pavilion has never interfered in any important matter of Agate Star Area. After you hold the office, you want to break the rules immediately, don't you? Usually, Potion and Tool Pavilion would never participate in any dispute of Agate Star Area. However, they often affected the forces discreetly in the shadows. Everyone knew that. Gu took the Ice Clan, Fire Clan, and Crystal Clan here, which meant that they had to sweep off the outsiders from Agate Star Area. However, they had broken the rules of Potion and Tool Pavilion. As Blood Devil came, he immediately asked Gu without trying to be nice or polite. Gu furrowed his brows. He begrudgingly looked at Shang Qin and didn't say much. What Shang Chan said had shaken him hard. He was threatened. Gu couldn't help but glance at Shi Yan, his face grimacing more. He knew that at his position, Shang Qin wouldn't deceive him. What Shang Qin said was all the truth. If he started a war here, his Gu family would be uprooted. He would be killed too. The young man in front of him would be the originator. Gu was so worried. Blood Devil, Shang Qin called him quietly. Blood Devil, Gute, and Bath heard his voice. They were surprised and their bodies shook. They immediately greeted him solemnly. Great sage. They seemed to know Shang Qin better than Gu. At first glance, they knew Shang Qin's identity. They immediately showed him their respect. This dispute ends here. Don't extend it further. Shang Qin sighed and then added, if you don't want to see Fiery Rain Star Area and Agate Star Area fall into the God Clan's control, you must calm down now. While talking, Shang Qin looked really tired. It seemed like talking was also strenuous for him at this moment. A wisp of blood mist silently diffused from Shang Qin's god body. His abundant qi drained quickly. He did not look good at all. His face gradually paled. It seemed like an invisible hand was destroying his mind and body at the same time. He could freeze Gu and hurt Ino in just a blink, and no one could recognize his attack. However, he currently didn't have a beam of power to resist. He could only stand and bear the pain. Shang Qin coughed terribly. A trickle of dark blood oozed from the corner of his mouth. He smiled sadly. Lifting his head to look at the immense horizon, he shivered. Everybody was frightened. They looked at him, but they didn't know what was happening to him. The ones who could understand the situation had bitter eyes while they felt many waves rising in their hearts. Blood Devil was shaken. He walked to Shang Qin and prepared to use the immortal demon blood to heal the old man. It's useless. Shang Qin waved his hand to stop Blood Devil, beaming a forced smile. It's the price that I have to pay. Otherwise, I can't see that spider web of fate or the path to walk. Pausing for a while, he tried to look excited. Don't worry. I'm all right. I've risked my life to stop your battle. I hope you will listen to what I've told you today. Gu Xiaoen, Yushan, Blood Devil, and the others looked at him and nodded. No one dared to protest. Don't fight. Give up the racism. Give up family hatreds and resentment. Let go of the dispute between the 2 star areas. Shang Qin looked and talked to them. The barrier between Agate Star Area and Ancient God Star Area will be forcefully torn in 10 years max. When that happens, the great army of God Clan will invade you. I hope you will be well prepared in 10 years. Improve the competencies of everyone to the utmost. If you can't defeat the God Clan, you will be killed. You will be enslaved. All warriors of Agate Star Area, Blood Devil, Bath, Gute, Guhi, Eno, Miaorong, Jubu, and even the warriors at Incipient God Realm had ashen faces. No one doubted Shangchen. Everybody stooped and felt heavy-hearted. Shangchen looked at Yushan and Xiaoen. It's the right move that you came to find Leona to train your soldiers. In this vast universe, the ones who could face the God clan are only members of the bloodthirsty bloodline. You will have only 7 or 8 years before the massive operation of the God clan. They will attack Fiery Rain Star Area with their best power. If you can win in that battle, Fiery Rain Star Area won't need to worry about the God clan for a long time. You need to hurry and try your best to prepare for that coming battle. Xiaoen and Yushan were frightened. They nodded. They believed what Shangchen had just told them. Shangchen coughed, his line of sight falling on Shiyan. I was asked to be here. I want to take you to someplace. Follow me. Who asked you to come to see me? Shiyan was surprised. Shangchen grinned and didn't explain. For rings suddenly flew out of his sleeve and flew toward Fei Lan, Leona, Ka Tua, and Benny respectively. Someone asked me to deliver those rings to you guys. They are pretty useful to your realm and power. I wish for you to reach the perfect state in the future. He looked at Shiyan and said, you don't need to take care of them for a while. They have their own destinies. Fei Lan, Leona, Ka Tua, and Benny received the rings. They sensed for a while. Seconds later, their eyes brightened and their faces were happy. Apparently, what the rings stored was extremely suitable for them. You too, Shangchen regarded Fei Lan and Leona and smiled. The ones you want to find have escaped adversity. You don't need to worry about them. They're doing well, though. You will meet them soon. Fei Lan and Leona were very happy. Fei Lan's man and Leona's father had left Raging Flame Star Area a long time ago. They didn't receive any message from them for such a long time. After they had arrived in Agate Star Area, they knew that the ones they wanted to find used to be confined by the Dark Shadow Clan. However, after leaving the space passage, they didn't find anything. The two of them were disappointed and worried. Today, hearing Shangchen, the two of them had finally eased their minds. They were even happier than receiving the rings. They both said thanks to Shangchen. Benny and Ka Tua also bowed to him with sincere faces. No need to thank me, Shangchen shook his head. It's I who owes you. He immediately turned to Shiyan and said, you don't need to worry about them. Come with me. Hurry up. To where? I will tell you on the way. All right. Shiyan simply confirmed with Shangchen. You gave Potion and Tool Pavilion's cannon to Guhi, said Shangchen all of a sudden. Give it to Guhi? Shiyan shook his head and smiled coldly. He doesn't deserve it. It was to Fu Wei. The cannon is destined for her. Today, among the elders of Potion and Tool Pavilion, only Fu Wei has the capacity to decode the mysteries of the cannon. Shangchen looked at Guhi and pondered. Fu Wei is the future of Potion and Tool Pavilion. If she can't decipher the cannon's mysteries, you will follow the trail of the former pavilion masters. Only if Fu Wei can break the mysteries of the cannon can you escape your fatal destiny. Guhi paled. The former pavilion masters had forged weapons or refined pellets until they had fallen into bedevilment, shattered their bodies, and left only a dying wisp of a soul. They couldn't stand for a long time, though. It seemed to be related to many secrets in the refining of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Lower realm blacksmiths and alchemists wouldn't meet such a bottleneck. However, when they reach a particular level, they would eventually fall into such a destiny. The previous pavilion masters and the oldest elders of the pavilion had disappeared like that. Guhi took a deep breath and said with a dispirited face, I understood. It's good that you've understood. Shangchen nodded. I just want the best for you. I want you to live longer. Remember to give the cannon to Fu Wei. Otherwise, you will die eventually. Shangchen looked at Shiyan and said, give it to him. We are in a hurry. We don't have much time to waste here. Your great-grandpa is waiting for you to rescue him. My great-grandpa? Shiyan discolored in fright. How is he? He's too extreme. He has a problem. I've confined him for the time being. The situation is serious. Shangchen sighed, we should talk on the way. Shiyan didn't hesitate anymore. He snorted at Guhi and threw him the cannon. If you still have the cannon the next time I see you, I will take it for the second time. Well, I will take your life with it too. Gu he discolored. He didn't dare to open his mouth and talk. He just grabbed the cannon with a wince. After he had listened to Shang Chen's prophecy saying that he would die by Shi Yan's hand if he fought him, Gu he was wary of Shi Yan unknowingly. Facing him, Gu he couldn't help but be restlessly anxious. Chapter 1088, Soul-Rotting Aphids. Chapter 1088, Soul-Rotting Aphids, _ Shang Chen rushed away. He was here for about 1 hour before he departed. However, in 1 hour, most of the experts of Agate Star area and Fiery Rain Star area seemed to be under his spell. They had made up their mind to stop the potential battle from happening. Quickly, all the warriors in that place scattered. Gu he took the cannon and drove his battleships away. Warriors of the Ice Clan, Fire Clan, and Crystal Clan left with him. Zhu Bo, Sana, and Xiao of the Divine Light discussed for a while and then decided to return to Divine Light's headquarters. They had to start preparing for the fierce war that would come in the future. Blood Devil, Yushan, and Shaoan discussed with the warriors of Fiery Rain Star area for a while to outline their plans. Leona would arrange and help the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, and Fiery Rain Star area train their soldiers. Yushan and Shaoan really liked Benny, so they asked Benny to help Fiery Rain Star area soldiers in training to prepare for the Great War in the future. Shang Chen's words were vague and seemed to be far ahead. However, no one dared to doubt him. They deemed his words as the truth and the basis for their plans and strategies. The Fate Traveler, Shang Chen, stood as the mysterious prophet who had operated for many years in Agate Star area. None of his prophecies were wrong. Rumors said that when Shang Chen was just a little boy, he could vaguely see the past and future of people. For a long time, Shang Chen had earned a living as a fortune teller. One day, he could all of a sudden predict the future. Gradually, he had become famous and got the wonderful power Upanishad to understand fate. Several thousand years had passed and the name of Shang Chen had been spread out between the top strong forces. Experts who knew his talents would consider him the life coach to consult. Shang Chen didn't fail them. He had solved many disasters that could have eradicated the entire Agate Star area. He had kept Agate Star area safe through many perilous periods. Because of Shang Chen, the blood war to come had to stop before it actually took place. Gu he left with the warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Forces of the Divine Light and Fighting League also left the planet. Afterward, Blood Devil, Bath, and Gute also returned to their places through the Child Formation. Leona stayed in Cloud Sea Star. Together with Benny, they helped Fiery Rain Star area experts train their troops. Cloud Sea Star resumed its tranquility. Inside the deep and dark sea of stars, 2 figures flashed and disappeared like meteors. They had left Shadow Ghostly Prison and went pretty far. In Agate Galaxy, they traveled like 2 shuttles. The space nodes around them had fierce commotions as they continually swayed through the spaces. They disappeared shortly after into a spacelet and reappeared in another area. Today, the 2 of them arrived at the edge of Agate Star area, an area of floating, dead stars. They landed on a desolate dead star with many rough caves. This dead star had no earth and heaven energy or living being energy waves. It was so cold and quiet. Swoosh! Shi Yan landed on the ground and was sweating. Are we there yet? You always urge me to use the space power Upanishad to go through the space nodes and teleport on a small scale, but you didn't tell me about the situation yet. Did you know that moving continually like that will consume my soul energy by a lot? Apparently, his condition wasn't good. After they had left Cloud Sea Star, Shang Chen continually urged him and showed him the direction so he could use the space power Upanishad to teleport. Shi Yan had to consume his energy constantly. After many times, he was almost exhausted. Currently, he had consumed 70% or even 80% energy in this body. Each time he teleported, he could cross several life stars, which was around billions of miles. If he hadn't reached Ethereal God Realm, he would be exhausted already. During this journey, Shang Chen didn't say a word. He wore a heavy-hearted face and pondered. He didn't react to Shi Yan's question, which made Shi Yan more suspicious. Shi Yan burst out eventually. Shengchen still had a solemn countenance, but his eyes were much better. He suddenly smiled and turned his head to see Shiryen. I found the right one, indeed. With first sky of ethereal god realm cultivation vase, you could teleport 11 times. Each time, we are traveling billions of miles. The power you have in your body is really extraordinary. I gave up everything to go with you. I'm not here to listen to your compliments. Shiryen was hurried. How is my great-grandfather? Shangchen pondered for a while and then said, you should see it first. A light blue halo expanded from his palm and rippled like water waves. Slowly, it projected some images. A massive blue ice crystal emerged. This crystal was blurry and sparkling with a chill-to-the-bone cold air. It confined a tall and thin body. That person seemed to have his body's functions and soul confined and frozen. That's my great-grandpa, Shiryen hissed coldly. Take a closer look. Shangchen sighed. The blue light in his palm changed again. The blue crystal zoomed bigger. Yang Tian Emperor was inside the ice crystal, and it became clearer. Shiryen could see that his entire body was bleeding with many cuts. He looked like a person when a beast had used its claws to scratch him. Some scratches were so deep that Shiryen could even see his bones. It was because of the distance and the ice crystal that Shiryen didn't recognize his situation at first glance. At this moment, Yang Tian Emperor's god body was magnified several times. Shiryen could see the wounds stretch over his body like many deep ditches that even reached his skeleton. There were hundreds of scratches expanding and crossing each other all over his body. Shiryen's face looked like he had a layer of frost covering it. However, his voice was extremely calm. Who did that? Shangchen maintained his hand's position. He looked at him naturally and calmly. He did that to himself. Shiryen trembled. The murderous aura in Shiryen's eyes was like an evil dragon turning its body. He did that? You're telling me that he did that to himself? Heavy murderous aura. Shangchen was shaken. He knitted his brows and sighed. He's worth being the heir of that bloodline. It's true that he did that to himself. You keep watching. Shangchen spurted a silver electric beam that seeped into the image in front of them. He magnified Yang Tian Emperor's image several times. Now, Yang Tian Emperor looked like a giant who could shade the entire sky with his mountain-like body. Inside his deep eyes were strange lights. Shiryen could feel some strange but fierce energy fluctuations in his brain. Shiryen suddenly closed his eyes. A wisp of soul consciousness flew out and tried to sense something. After a while, he was shaken. He opened his eyes, which were filled with fear. What are those tiny creatures in his soul altar and in his brains? He could feel clearly hundreds of thousands of little creatures inside Yang Tian Emperor's brain and soul altar. Those creatures were very small, so he could only sense them with his soul. However, they were so evil and strange with cold qi and were filling Yang Tian Emperor's head. Shangchen balled his fingers into a fist. Yang Tian Emperor's image disappeared. Yang Tian Emperor has been in evil north zone of Agate Star area for many years. He received the profound inheritance of the Despair Power Upanishad. He consistently challenged the local experts. In that way, he increased his realm and power stably and rapidly. Every time, he always challenged the expert whose realm higher was than his. He defeated them in the end. It was the mystery and yet essential feature of Despair Power Upanishad. He has comprehended its essence. The last expert he had challenged in the North Zone had a rare, evil treasure, which contained a significant amount of those creatures. Before he died, he had released them to erode Yang Tian Emperor's body and soul. He immediately fell into a bedevilment status. He lost control of his soul and consciousness. He crazily scratched his body like that. He had almost destroyed his god body. This creature is called soul-rotting aphis. It's a kind of micro-demonic insect. Those aphids can gnaw the brain and reproduce. They can invade people's thoughts and distort the sea of consciousness and soul altar. They will make people crazy and lose themselves. Pausing for a while, Shangchen continued, Yang Tian Emperor has the soul-rotting aphis in his brain. He lost his mind shortly after. He has fallen into bedevilment. He has destroyed his body. I've used the blue ice crystal of the extremely cold north zone to stop him and the aphids in his brain. In that confinement, we can preserve him well. I can use heaven flames to refine those insects or worms, said Shiyan. Shangchen shook his head and said casually, we can't use that method. Heaven flames could burn the soul-rotting aphids, but they could also burn Yang Tian Emperor's soul. Those demonic insects have blended with his soul consciousness and brain. At this moment, they are one. If you burn the soul-rotting aphids, Yang Tian Emperor would be killed too. Listening to him, Shiyan frowned. Do you have any method? Of course, I have a method, Shangchen nodded. We need you to do that. Follow me first. When we get there, I will tell you the details. Shangchen touched the ground under his feet. A strange noise echoed from deep inside the ground of this barren dead star. It seemed like he had just activated some mechanism. He nodded to Shiyan and then plunged down to the dark cave that had just cracked under their feet. He entered the dead star directly. Hesitating for a while, Shiyan jumped into that cave and entered the dead star. After 15 minutes, Shiyan saw Shangchen stand on a high triangle tower. That tower was made of empty fantasy crystal. It had so many exquisite and complicated light beams crossing each other. Obviously, it was a magical teleport formation. Underneath the teleport formation were many top-quality divine crystals, which contained an enormous amount of earth and heaven energy. This kind of energy was so thick that it was almost like water. When it rose, it was like the water of a dreamy lake, and it made people feel awed. At a first glance, he knew how complicated this teleport formation was. It was much more exquisite than the child formation that he had refined. Where does it connect? Standing bewildered for a while, Shiyan asked. We should leave Agate Star area first, smiled Shangchen. This teleport formation could cross star areas. Shiyan discolored in fright. Shangchen nodded. In our Agate Star area, this is the only profound space teleport formation that can cross the space border. I've been watching this place for so many years. Chapter 1089, Desolate. Chapter 1089, Desolate, _ In the center of an energy sea that looked more like a lake, dazzling lights shot out, weaving into a complex formation. A fierce wave of energy triggered. Shiyan and Shangchen glowed like blinding crystals. They disappeared in the brilliant light. Both of their bodies and souls were teleported. They disappeared from this dead star. Boom, boom. Explosions echoed unceasingly inside the dead star. The cave that had been cracked slowly closed. The marvelous space formation didn't have energy waves anymore. The top-quality divine crystals with abundant energy had lost the energy after they were activated. Now, they looked like dull, ordinary stones that were inlaid in the formation. No energy waves anymore. Inside the thick fog, Shangchen and Shiyan were like two shining beams moving forward. This kind of mist had magical powers which could separate the soul consciousness. In this area, Shiyan couldn't sense his surroundings. He felt blind with his eyes open. Obviously, it wasn't the first time Shangchen had come here. In this thick mist, he continually gave Shiyan direction and guided him to move forward. Did we leave Agate Star area? Shiyan was baffled. In that great space teleport formation, Shiyan felt like his soul and body were separated. He felt so dizzy. When he woke up, he found himself in this place. However, he didn't see the same teleport formation here, which made him astounded. Usually, the teleport formation couldn't teleport one way. It required another teleport formation in the destination to connect the route and teleport people or things. However, when he woke up, he saw himself in the thick mist without another teleport formation. He was so surprised. It's true. We aren't in Agate Star area anymore. Shangchen nodded and said, we are in the peripheral area of another star area. It's called Fantasy Mist Star Area, which is adjacent to Fiery Rain Star Area and Agate Star Area. It's not really far from the place we have just left. Shangchen looked ahead of them, his body releasing magical energy fluctuations that could clear the mist in front of them. He focused and didn't say much to Shiyan. Why did you take me here? Shiyan frowned. Someone asked me to do so. Who asked you? One of the undying bastards of your bloodthirsty bloodline. I owed him one. I've promised him so today. I fulfilled his wish. Who is that precursor? Frederick. Shang Chen said through his gritted teeth. Shi Yan was baffled. He thought and then shook his head. I've never heard of him before. Shang Chen turned his head to look at Shi Yan and the blood vein ring on his finger. He spoke faintly. Hasn't it told you anything? Its memory isn't complete. Shi Yan answered honestly. He recognized his intention immediately and asked, Can you tell me more? The story related to the ring and the descendants of the bloodthirsty bloodline? Can you tell me the secrets you know? Shang Chen pondered for a while and then shook his head. I don't know. You'd better wait until the ring gathers its memory fully. It will tell you then. I'm not from your bloodline. I don't know many secrets of yours. If I tell you something, it's just the surface of the matter. I may disturb those bastards' arrangement. It's not gonna be okay then. Those bastards? Who are you referring to? Shi Yan's eyes brightened. He asked excitedly, Some precursors of the bloodthirsty bloodline are still alive? How many of them? He always thought that the precursors of the bloodthirsty bloodline were all dead. The only one who was still alive was the one who cultivated death power Upanishad. But he still didn't have many clues related to that man. Would that Frederick be his name? How could they die easily? Shang Chen pouted his lips, his face awkward. You've underestimated their tenacious vitalities. Can you tell me which power Upanishad Frederick cultivates? Shi Yan asked earnestly. Until now, Shi Yan had known 5 out of 8 inheritances of the bloodthirsty bloodline, which included death, erosion, darkness, chaos, and destruction. He didn't know about the other 3. As Shang Chen mentioned them, of course, Shi Yan had to know them. Frederick is a member of the Corpse clan. Of course, he cultivates the corpse power, said Shang Chen casually. Corpse power? Shi Yan's face became odd. Corpse power is one of the Great 8 inheritances? Of course, Shang Chen's face was also odd. You don't even know about the Great 8 inheritances. Shi Yan felt so ashamed. He beamed a forced smile. Until now, I've known only 5 powers Upanishads including death, erosion, darkness, chaos, and destruction. Now I know about the corpse power. I don't know the other 2. The despair power Upanishad that your great-grandfather is cultivating is also one of them. This kind of power Upanishad requires a lucky encounter and innate endowment to enter. There's no inheritance that could get them into this cultivation path. Your great-grandfather is so stubborn. But it's what helped him understand the truth of despair power Upanishad. Oh, right. Agate Star Area used to have a peerless expert who inherited the despair power Upanishad from your bloodthirsty bloodline. Your great-grandfather could sense the energy of despair power Upanishad. That's why he came to the North Zone to look for something. Now he has a profound knowledge of that man, explained Shang Chen. Shi Yan had divine light shining on his face. Oh. It turns out that the despair power Upanishad is one of the Great 8 inheritance. The last inheritance is called soul driving. It's an evil secret soul technique, which is much profound than that amateur Eno. Shang Chen was still frightened as he mentioned that man. Your precursor who has mastered soul driving power is the most mysterious man in this universe. Besides the bloodthirsty cortege of 8, no one knows his real identity. Rumors say that he doesn't have a body. He's just a wisp of a soul wandering around the big star area. He has driven many experts into the dark. The soul of those experts became part of him. He turned them into puppets that he could control. Taking a deep breath, Shang Chen looked aghast. The force he controls is so dominating. He's the big brother of the bloodthirsty cortege of 8. He's the most dangerous and mysterious expert. He's the archenemy that all 12 families of the God clan want to kill. The 12 families of the God clan have spent their strong armies with countless efforts and time, but they couldn't figure out his real identity or his whereabouts. Shang Chen seemed to be wary of that person who had mastered the soul-driving technique. When he talked about that expert, his face also changed. Haven't you mastered the fate power Upanishad? Even you don't know his real identity. Shi Yan was surprised. The fate power Upanishad isn't something like you imagine. Quite the contrary. The more you've comprehended it, the more complicated fate means to you. Shang Chen sighed and mumbled, the deeper I learn about it, the more helpless I've become when I couldn't do anything to turn things around. The spider web of fate is so complicated. I can only have glimpses of it. So, how many people of the Bloodthirsty's bloodline that you know are still alive? Pondering for a while, Shuryen asked. There are at least 3 out of 8 members of the Bloodthirsty's entourage. Frederick cultivates corpse power. Xian, he cultivates death power Upanishad. And the one who cultivates soul-driving power. No one knows his real name. Besides them, there are some more possibly living in different corners of this vast universe, said Shengchen. So the Bloodthirsty's bloodline doesn't have only 8 people? Shuryen was astounded. You're so ignorant that it's funny. Shengchen explained with an odd face. The great 8 inheritances of Bloodthirsty have their fruits everywhere. Of course, there aren't only 8 people. The Bloodthirsty's cortege of 8 are the 8 leaders of the 8 great inheritances. Although there aren't many people who cultivate the 8 great powers, it's not only 8 of them in this universe. However, after that war with the God Clan, almost all members of the great 8 inheritances were killed. The 8 members of the entourage were also damaged badly. Some disappeared. How mysterious or special is the master of the Bloodthirsty? Shuryen asked. It seems like my inheritance comes from him. Him? I'm not qualified to talk about him. Shengchen changed his face in fear. He immediately closed his mouth, his panic-stricken eyes glancing at the blood vein ring on Shuryen's finger. Pondering for a while, he said, wait until the ring's spirit has restored its memory. Then, you can ask it. I don't dare to say anything related to him. After that, no matter what Shuryen tried to ask him, Shangqin remained silent. He didn't say anything while wearing a bizarre countenance. After a long time drilling through the thick mist, Shuryen's eyes brightened as he screamed. There's a life star. A beautiful sky star was inside the thick mist. It radiated a fierce halo that looked like an electric arc that covered everywhere. It was a still planet as it was moving with energy that could destroy everything. Under the magnificent halo of the star, Shuryen found many mineral stars and dead stars surrounding that blue sky star. However, while the star was moving, it often impacted and crushed the dead stars and mineral stars standing in its way as easily as breaking dried tree branches. Those mineral stars and dead stars turned into smaller meteors that fell extremely quickly. That blue sky star was very massive. It was much bigger than any star Shuryen had seen. His soul consciousness couldn't cover the entire star, and those electric arc layers had sealed the whole planet. The blue sky star was maneuvering with an earth-shaking energy fluctuation. It was much faster than the speedy battleships. Shangqin screamed excitedly. Finally found it. Shuryen was scared. The destination you said is this life star. Shangqin nodded and said, I've agreed with Frederick to bring you there. I went to Agate Star area to find you and arrange for you to access that life star. Access that life star? Shuryen was surprised. Why do I have to go here? The thing that could cure your great-grandfather is in this planet. Besides, it has more magical things. Frederick wanted you to go there for something better for you. Shangqin looked so bitter and regretful when he took out a blue sky fruit which looked similar to that life star. I have to exert a lot of effort to have this guiding fruit. Oh, never mind. The favor I owed your Bloodthirsty's bloodline could be paid off with this though. Can you give more details? Shuryen was a little annoyed. This life star is called Desolate. It's an ancient continent. In this vast universe, there are only 5 ancient continents. This Desolate is one of them, but it isn't similar to any other ancient continent. Desolate doesn't give birth to any creature. It only bears precious and rare original incipient grade herbs and other materials. It will open every 10,000 years for 10 years. Yeah, you know the ancient continents have the origin. The origin somehow has cognition. You can consider Desolate a life star with cognition. Only the guiding fruit growing in Desolate can let you in. Here, it's for you. Shangqin explained and then handed Shuryen that strange fruit. Chapter 1090, Outstanding Talents. Chapter 1090, Outstanding Talents, _ The guiding fruit was as big as a walnut. It had a strange blue hue with many strange patterns on it. Strange energy was surging inside that fruit, which was someone resonating with the ancient continent called Desolate. With a close look, Shuryen could see that the patterns on the guiding fruit were releasing the clear blue light. Shengqin threw the guiding fruit to Shuryen, his face bitter and regretful. The guiding fruits are scarce. People got it from the previous time that the ancient continent opened. It's called the Key of Desolate. You can use it to enter Desolate. I have fulfilled my promise to Frederick. The guiding fruit felt a little cold in Shuryen's hand. Still furrowing his brows, Shuryen didn't understand Shengqin's intention. I don't get it. Okay, it's like this. Shengqin looked at the ancient continent called Desolate in front of them. His eyes sparkled with divine light. Desolate has many secrets. It also has the most magical, wonderful herbs and stones. Most of them are at original incipient grade, which is most suitable for refining weapons and pellets. In this vast sea of stars, you can consider Desolate an undiscovered treasure house. What does it matter to the soul-rotting aphids inside my great-grandfather? Shuryen tightened his fingers around the rigid fruits and asked, why does Frederick want me to get in there? There's something that could wash the soul-rotting aphids in your great-grandfather's brain. That thing is rare and hard to find. It's in the ancient continent. Shengqin pointed at Desolate and said, that thing is called seven-colored demonic flower. It looks like a beautiful girl's face. It can cry or smile, and yes, it has cognition. It can poison a person's mind. That flower is an original incipient grade herb. It's the most precious tonic to refine many soul spells and charms. Pausing for a while, Shengqin continued, and I don't know why Frederick wants you to get in there. But I think that people who get the guiding fruit would risk their lives to get into that continent. Because of those rare treasures of earth and heaven? Asked Shuryen. Nah, it's only one reason, Shengqin smiled and said, Desolate is an ancient continent. It has cognition. Right from the beginning, it has sealed itself and kept wandering around the significant star areas. It opens every 10,000 years. Besides giving birth to the earth and heaven precious treasures, there are more mysterious areas in the center of Desolate because it has maintained the primal status since the beginning. The other ancient continents have exhausted their energy to produce creatures. Gradually, they became just like other typical life stars. But Desolate is different. It has never given birth to creatures. Earth and heaven energy in that continent is still at its thickest level. There's something marvelous of the primal time. However, only those who can get in there could understand. As far as I know, experts of the great star areas who returned alive from Desolate always had a harvest. Their realm-breaking speeds would increase unimaginably. Shuryen was bewildered. He asked, experts from other star areas could get in that continent too? What's the realm-breaking you've mentioned? Of course the experts of the other star areas would come here. Shengqin's face was calm. As far as I know, this time, there should be dozens of warriors entering the ancient planet. They're all outstanding talents of the big star area. Their powers are astounding. Just like you, they even have the ability to challenge warriors at a higher realm. Pausing for a while, Shengqin said earnestly, the breaking I've mentioned is about your powers Upanishads. I heard that warriors could fuse different powers Upanishads in Desolate. I think Frederick wants you to come here because of this feature. Your powers Upanishads are many, which holds you down. Desolate is extremely suitable for you. Shuryen pondered for a while and then said, is it true that anybody with the guiding fruit could enter Desolate? No, Shengqin shook his head. Desolate will resist and expel incipient God realm experts. Since the incipient God realm expert's energy is too abundant, it would damage Desolate's structure. Thus, incipient God realm experts wouldn't be able to get in there. Only warriors like you, the outstanding warriors at ethereal God realm, can access that continent. You will meet plenty of ethereal God realm experts from different star areas, not only fantasy Miss Star area. There will be experts from many star areas, including the God clan experts. Will there be fighting? Asked Shuryen seriously. It's not will. Battle happens every minute in the most furious and bloody way. The original incipient grade materials and marvelous regions that cultivate different power Upanishads can make people crazy. Right at the moment you get in there, you will have to face the strongest ethereal God realm experts in this universe. Since you are at first sky of ethereal god realm, haha, you must be more careful, boy. While talking, a book flew out of Shang Chen's sleeves. As it was flipping in the wind, Shi Yan could see figures and drawings on each page, including grass, flower, stones, wood materials, and more. All looked lively as if they were real samples. Shi Yan could see the tiny descriptions too. Here, take this book. It contains the drawings of the original incipient grade materials that I've studied. You will need it in Desolate. Shi Yan didn't pretend to be too polite. He reached for the book and bowed to thank the old man. I told you what I had to tell you. Shang Chen rubbed his chin, which didn't have a beard. He swung his hand generously. You should go. Just hold the guiding fruit in your hand. When you go near Desolate, something will happen. I don't need to tell you more. I've remembered your soul energy fluctuation. 10 years later, I will come and find you to help you complete your tasks. After Shang Chen said that, he turned around and left quickly as if he was afraid to meet someone here. In just a blink of an eye, he disappeared from Shi Yan's line of sight. His aura was also concealed. No matter how hard Shi Yan tried, he couldn't track him down. The ancient continent named Desolate was still barging into other stars and crushing the stars standing in its way. Sparks of broken stars exploded like the most dazzling fireworks. It was still moving around in the area of thick mist. Shi Yan observed closer. He found that Desolate was slowing down as if it knew what it was doing. Although Desolate was moving fast, Shi Yan wasn't afraid that he would get ditched behind as he had cultivated space power Upanishad. It wouldn't be a big problem to chase after Desolate. Thus, Shi Yan wasn't hurried. Suddenly, his soul had a vibe as he felt 3 auras approaching him. The vitality waves of those 3 auras were abundant with a lot of blood chi. Shi Yan could feel one of them was at second sky of incipient god realm. He couldn't know Shang Chen's realm because of his magical power Upanishad. However, he vaguely guessed that Shang Chen was at third sky of incipient god realm. He was likely one of the true peerless experts of this universe. 3 blasts sweeping over like rainbows or 3 lightning strikes. Shortly after, 3 people appeared right at the location where Shang Chen had just disappeared. A married woman in her 40s with an appearance of someone who had experienced hardships in her life emerged. She wore a dark blue brocade garment with a jade-ornamented belt that marked her beautiful contours. Although her gait was graceful, her face was full of rage. As soon as she arrived, she thundered, "Old bastard! Bring your ass here!" Standing by the woman were 1 young lady and 1 young man who looked pretty similar to Shang Chen. The young man looked really dashing. He was wearing a silver robe. He was fast and had great manners, but his face was so cold. The young woman was slender and was wearing a light blue dress. She had a water blue vest over her dress that showcased her 2 white, jade-like arms. Her moonlight arms were decorated with many colorful jade rings. She also wore a crescent moon emerald necklace that dangled above her ample bosom, which supported her charming figure. The young woman had a lagoon belt on her waist, which was as small as a hand and as delicate as a snake. The middle-aged women brought a young man and a girl to this area, right when Shang Chen had just left. She ground her teeth. That damn old bastard. I'd risked my life to take the guiding fruit for our children and you stole one. Tell me, is that how you do your parenting role? The matured woman looked here and there. She spoke through her gritted teeth. Get your ass down here for me. The young man and lady were also cold. They harshly looked around. It was too bad that Shang Chen had left earlier. The 3 of them released their soul consciousness to search for him for a while. The married woman had shouted for a while, but they didn't see any commotion of Shang Chen. After a long time, they gave up. The woman glanced and her line of sight fell on Shi Yan. She struggled in her mind for a while and then said to him all of a sudden, "That old bastard handed something to you." I know it. I know the aura of the guiding fruit because I found them, 2 of them. She turned her head, looking lovingly at the man and the girl behind her. Taking a deep breath, she said, "Please return it to us. I've prepared the fruits for my son and daughter. Shang Chen, that bastard, has stolen one from me." Pausing for a while, she said resentfully, "I don't care what he has promised other people. I don't mind what earth-shaking favor he owes them. Nevertheless, this guiding fruit belongs to me." He has stolen it from me. Please return it to me. The young man and the lady focused on Shiryen. Friend, you've reached first sky of ethereal god realm. Even if you can get into Desolate with guiding fruit, you can't survive for 10 years there. You should know reality and return the fruit to us. I'm sure we won't mistreat you. We will find another chance to repay the favor that my father owes you guys. What do you think? The young man was calm. He spoke with great manners. The way he treated people looked pretty similar to Shang Chen's. At the same time, the slender girl in blue took after her mother. Her swan egg-shaped face was mesmerizingly beautiful. However, she had a cold and clear voice. Please return our thing to its owner. Otherwise, we will not be afraid to take it back with force. Don't be wanton. The young man shouted at her. He has some relationship with father. Our father has taken risks to cause a grudge with us to give him the fruit. He has his reasoning that we don't know. We don't want to trouble him too much, though. Don't mind that heartless bastard. He deserves his 10,000 death sentence as he doesn't care about his children's futures. The woman was so enraged. It looked like she didn't want to waste her saliva talking about her husband. Boy, please give it back to us. We really don't want to trouble you. I'm sorry. This guiding fruit is very important to me. It's related to my beloved one's death or life. I can't give it back to you. Shiryen bent his body slightly and sighed. A dazzling space slit cracked behind his back. He clasped his hands towards the three and stepped backward, disappeared into the space slit. When he reappeared, he was at the outer layer of Desolate already. Chapter 1091, Ancient Continent. Chapter 1091, Ancient Continent, _ Space Power Upanishad. The matured woman screamed in fear. She could only watch Shiryen disappear and reappear by the outer layer of Desolate in a blink of an eye. She couldn't do anything. She was so annoyed. At her realm, she could know Shiryen's true realm with only a glance, but she couldn't know which powers Upanishad he was cultivating. Thus, she couldn't predict that Shiryen had Space Power Upanishad. Seeing Shiryen escape using his Space Power Upanishad, she understood immediately. She knew why Shiryen had been calm when he met them. Mother, the slender but graceful girl, changed her visage. The young man also had a regretful face. He sighed begrudgingly and shook his head. Father must know the power Upanishad he cultivates. That's why he could leave him here unguarded. As the three of them were ready to attack Shiryen, they had even mobilized their energy. On the one hand, they wanted to take the guiding fruit back. On the other hand, they wanted to make Shangchen show himself. When Shiryen had successfully escaped, they knew Shangchen had left a long time ago. That cowardly bastard! The matured woman gritted her teeth. She looked so angry that her eyes were raging with flames. The young man calmed down quickly. He's entering Desolate. We can't take the guiding fruit back. Yeah, we can't always get what we want. We need to alter the plan, though. Little Chiu, do you have any good solution? The woman sighed begrudgingly. The young man shook his head. I don't have any good solution. Anyway, we can enter Desolate with the guiding fruit. No one could break this rule for many years. Of course, we can't, either. He suddenly smiled and said gently, honestly, I'm not interested in entering Desolate. Guh, yelled the girl. Waving his hand, the young man stopped her screaming. He naturally took out a guiding fruit from his sleeve and shoved it into her hand. Little you go there. I'm here waiting for your good news. No. The girl shook her head, her neck reddening. She screamed, Father took my guiding fruit. It means he favors you more than me. You know he has keen eyes. This trip is crucial to you. You must take the chance. Nah, he just took it randomly. It was easier to take your fruit. You are overthinking it. The young man smiled brightly and relaxedly. I can reach incipient God realm without entering Desolate. You need to fuse the powers Upanishad. You must get in there shortly. After the young man said that, he didn't let the girl talk more. He swayed his body and moved away like a beam of light. After several flashes, he disappeared. Just keep it as little Chiu gave it to you. The woman lovingly adjusted the hem of the girl's dress. She said tenderly, "Go and bring us a surprise 10 years later. Find your brother the materials he needs. I believe you can do it." The beautiful eyes of the girl were complicated as she nodded and answered gently, "I understand." She bent her waist slightly and said seriously, "Take care, mother and Gitch." "Good girl. We will be all right. Your evil father can calculate things well. He will appear if something happens to us," the woman consoled the girl. "Yes, mother." The young girl nodded and bid farewell to her mother. She flew like a gust of wind towards Desolate. The rings on her white wrist flashed. The exquisite patterns on them emerged beautifully. It happened as what Shangchen had told Shiryen. He didn't need to do anything to enter Desolate. The guiding fruit in his hand was the key. When he approached the edge of Desolate and sensed the earth-shattering energy inside, Shiryen felt an explosion in his soul. He was shaken hard. It was the masterpiece of God and the power of nature. The torrential energy hiding in Desolate was thicker and more powerful than that of an expert he knew. Shiryen immediately felt overwhelmed. His soul flickered anxiously as he couldn't approach further. However, the guiding fruit exploded and made blue halos cover his entire body and protect his soul altar. Shiryen fell calm. He didn't even move. An unknown force started to pull him into the atmosphere while the electric arc that could kill the soul covering the planet ignored him and let him pass through. While he had almost entered Desolate, he saw an incipient God Realm expert trying to break into the planet at a corner pretty far from him. The electric arc stopped him and attacked his soul. The incipient God Realm expert immediately got hurt. He had to use some soul-class secret treasure to get rid of the attack. Shiryen also saw many blurry blue shadows like him from other areas of Desolate. They were slowly guided by Desolate and they moved through the atmosphere. After he had passed the atmosphere of Desolate, he had a wonderful feeling as if he had just jumped into the water. He felt floaty as he slowly sank. All of a sudden, he became a shooting star that plunged through layers of cotton clouds and a sparking electric passage. He grumblingly landed. However, before he hit the ground hard, he hurried to urge his energy. The immortal demon blood burst out, which held him backward. Shiryen landed inside a vast fog. This wet, muddy area had countless plants and foliage. The energy here was so thick that it was like a murmuring stream moving above his head. With a deep breath, Shiryen felt so wonderful as if the pores in his body were all relaxed. It was a marvelous experience, indeed. Shiryen was shaken, standing idly and perplexedly. He felt like he had an explosion in his head. Earth and heaven energy were so thick that it was almost like water spreading everywhere. Even though Shiryen didn't do anything, energy still flowed into his chest and seeped through his skin, following his veins to fill his essence chi ancient tree. It felt like soaking in a warm spring to wash his dirty body. Even his soul was clear. Ancient continent. Worth the name of the ancient continent. Shiryen was surprised. He furrowed his brows and touched his forehead instinctively. Shortly after, his eyes brightened up. His co-soul has some changes. Shiryen's co-soul was Grace Mainland's origin, which was the 10 heaven flames combined with a wisp of his soul. Now, his co-soul was like a sweet stream gushing out the remaining energy that it had gathered from outer space, which poured into this ethereal extent. In this area, his co-soul seemed to be able to guide the energy of outer space into his body. At the same time, it felt so relaxed and safe. Shiryen's co-soul was Grace Mainland's origin, and Grace Mainland was also an ancient continent. In this area, his co-soul seemed to harvest big benefits as it could guide a lot of free energy into this body. Shiryen used his soul consciousness to check and found his co-soul wrapped in wisps of creamy white mist, which were drawn from the energy around him. It congregated in his head and covered his co-soul. The co-soul was washed once again, and it gave him a magical feeling of something crystal clear and clean. He suddenly recognized the incredible benefit that this place had offered his co-soul and ethereal extent. Shiryen stood still in the swamp where he was surrounded by thick energy and many strange pieces of herbs and foliage. Shiryen didn't want to move yet. Closing his eyes, Shiryen was trying to sense the commotion around him. Suddenly, his sea of consciousness became chaotic as if some invisible force had just affected his mind. It was almost impossible to sense the surroundings using soul consciousness. When he tried to fly away, a strong gravity was suddenly applied at his spot, which pulled him back and prevented him from flying up to the sky. Desolate has cognition. It sealed itself and will open every 10,000 years. You can escape after 10 years. What Shang-Chen had told him about the magical features of this area suddenly emerged in his head. Shi Yan was astounded. He lifted his hand to walk and put aside the thought of flying away. Surprisingly, the intense gravity that had just pulled him down didn't exist. Shi Yan was dumbstruck. Now he could confirm what Shang-Chen had told him. This area was truly marvelous. And he realized that the earth under his feet indeed had its consciousness. This planet was truly a fantastic existence in this universe that stood for something mysterious that no one knew about. Shi Yan stood at his spot and took out the book that Shang-Chen had given him to study the drawings and descriptions that Shang-Chen had prepared. Shang-Chen wrote this thin book himself. Shi Yan admired his style of calligraphy and the realistic drawings. Those pictures seemed to be able to emerge from the pages. The content of this book contained descriptions of original incipient-grade materials and how to find and distinguish them. It was useful with the drawings and description as the readers could have a deep understanding of those wonderful materials. Shi Yan quieted down. He temporarily put aside the mysteries of this ancient continent to focus on the book. Shang-Chen wasn't just operating in Agate Star area. He was the Fate Traveler, and he seemed to travel through many strange star areas. His knowledge was broad and profound. The descriptions he wrote in the book were clear and easy to understand, which gave Shi Yan big benefits. Without this book, even if he saw the most precious thing on this ancient continent, he could never know it and waste his rare chance. With this book, he had a tool that could give him explanations at any time. This book was precious to him to distinguish something priceless. Bam! While he was reading the book earnestly, a low explosion came from afar with an angry scream. Frowning, he stashed the book. Thinking for a while, he silently dashed towards the source of the noise. The sound he had just heard came from Shang-Chen's daughter. She was the elegant woman who wasn't good to him while they were out there. The two guiding fruits they had should have something in common, which guided her near him. Shi Yan was worried that something unexpected happened to that girl, so he came to see if he could help. Anyway, the guiding fruit that got him here came from them. Although Shang-Chen had given him the fruit himself, Shi Yan still felt shameful. Moreover, she was Shang-Chen's daughter. For Shang-Chen, he couldn't stand still when his daughter got into trouble. However, things didn't go as he thought. When he arrived quietly, he saw that the young woman had fallen into a small, clear pond. She was soaking wet and her damp clothes were sticking on her generous contours. At this moment, she was rubbing her beautiful rear end gracelessly. She murmured in pain. Evidently, she got a rough landing. The robe that covered her beautiful curvy butts was wet, which made her more mesmerizing than ever. The contour of that wonderful butt cheek was breathtaking. Seeing her soft hand rubbing it, it looked pretty flexible. The bouncing cheek almost made Shi Yan's nose bleed. Standing and looking at her from a far distance, Shi Yan thought that he should leave quietly before he recognized her sharp blade look that would drill into his eyes and lock him down. Little bastard! The young woman cursed indignantly. She didn't notice her gentle curves were revealed. She violently dashed forward and raised fierce thunderbolts in the sky. Chapter 1092, Refined Blood. Chapter 1092, Refined Blood. _ The sky above the pond was covered with lightning. Electric arcs weaved like a light net that snatched over Shi Yan. In the grumbling thunder like an avalanche, the young woman gritted her white teeth, her elegant face cold. Savage electric dragons swirled around her body with an intimidating aura, her narrow eyes shooting electric beams. Shi Yan was frightened. That woman was at third sky of incipient god realm. She seemed to cultivate both lightning and ice powers Upanishads. She had exquisite attainment of both powers Upanishad. The moment the lightning strikes swarmed over Shi Yan, a sleet shower also started to fall from the sky. The rocks that were the size of a human head fell massively and rolled with power and icy energy. At that moment, the temperature of the surroundings was reduced dozens of times. After the lightning strikes hit the pond, it was damaged severely. Dirty water splashed on exploded foliage. Apparently, the woman thought he was peeping at her. She was so angry that her face turned purple. Her attacks could raise strong waves and gusts of wind from the surroundings. Her fiercely scorching lightning had stirred the entire area and left nothing in peace. While lightning strikes and sleet were attacking everywhere, Shuryen retreated like a ghost, flashing on and off. Brilliant starlight dots sparkled around Shuryen. They made his way, his trajectory in the sea of stars, moving him at fast speed. He ran so fast that even the soul consciousness couldn't catch him. After the battle in Cloudsea Star, Shuryen had put aside all the chaotic issues to watch the rising and lowering tides with Xia Xine Yen and Ziyao. His soul was peaceful and relaxed. When he had the mood to comprehend his powers Upanishads, he could occasionally grasp the key element of his power. Within that short time, he had improved his star power Upanishad to the level that could make people feel envy and awe. Shuryen urged his star power Upanishad and used the star power to create the magical sea of stars. His body seemed to fall into the starry sky, moving as if he was a star that could change according to the galaxy. His soul and body had fused with earth and heaven. Starlight dots emerged. While he was moving backward, those starlight dots sometimes gathered, sometimes scattered. This kind of movement was strange but marvelous. The woman had her eyelashes battered. Her soul consciousness was released like a vast net, but she couldn't figure out his direction. In her sensibility, Shuryen had disappeared from her sight as if he had become a part of this ancient continent, a tree, or even a leaf. He had blended well into the surroundings that the young woman couldn't detect his life energy fluctuation. The ability to recognize and locate the soul and aura was the premise to guide the attacks. Just like when a normal warrior fought, he needed to see where the opponent was to properly aim his attack. The thundering attack of the woman also needed to locate Shuryen first before she could do anything. However, right when Shuryen used his star power Upanishad, he had become part of the earth and heaven here. Sometimes, the others could see him with their eyes, but they couldn't grasp his location with their soul consciousness. This irritated the young woman a lot. Her savage attacks couldn't be accurate. She could only stir up the area around the pond. She had created many holes on the ground. At the same time, the dirty water of the swarm shot up and turned into a muddy shower falling from the sky. A large amount of dirty water had showered her and made her helter-skelter. As this ancient continent had restricted the warrior's soul consciousness, they could sense a small area around them. It was different from the other places where they could cover half a star with their soul consciousness. Thus, when Shuryen's image disappeared from her sight, she couldn't figure out where Shuryen once again. The graceful young woman had a lot of mud and other dirty, sticky objects from the swamp all over her body. She walked around the area to check for a while, but she couldn't see any commotion from Shuryen. She felt so gross and she wanted to find a clear lake to wash her body and change her clothes. This area had many lakes and bogs. Some were filled with dirty water, but there were still many clean lakes. However, it was strange that the entire place didn't have any life energy fluctuation of living creatures. Without insects, the whole place was filled with unknown foliage. After Shuryen had escaped the woman's attack, he still looked calm and gentle. He wandered around the swamp and held the book Shangqin had given him in his hand. He wasn't too bored to compete against that girl. However, Shuryen thought that she was tough at her third sky of ethereal god realm with her lightning and ice powers Upanishad. At the same time, her blood chi was abundant with a strong life magnetic field. Perhaps she wasn't less powerful than a first sky of incipient god realm expert like Feng Yan. Shuryen thought it was really difficult to fight to the death against her. Anyway, he didn't need to fight that woman. She was Shangchen's daughter, and the guiding fruit that Shuryen got was from her family. At the same time, Shangchen had treated him pretty well, and his relationship with Frederick of the bloodthirsty bloodline was quite good. From any aspect, he shouldn't provoke or fight with her. He'd better stay away from her. With the book in his hand, Shiryan read carefully while observing the spiritual herbs and flowers around him. There were many flowers with peculiar auras and energy. However, they weren't original incipient grade materials. His book didn't have any articles about them. However, Shiryan could find many divine grade materials, which were attractive to original God Realm warriors if they appeared in the market. However, he wasn't here for them. Although he found them interesting, he had to put his efforts into finding the strange and rare things in this book. This swamp seemed endless. He walked around the area for a long time, but he didn't see the end. Lifting his head to look at the sky, Shiryan had an admiring look. Although it had been a while, every time he watched the arch of the sky above his head, he always felt surprised. There were many colorful clouds in the sky, which looked like rainbows hanging that never disappeared. Their glamour made his soul mesmerized. Every time he looked at the sky, he felt like he was in a fantasy world where he never wanted to leave. Thick energy like water and spiritual herbs and grass were everywhere on the ground. There were magical sights that he had never seen before. It's an ancient continent. However, he hadn't seen the special places that Shangqin had told him or found original incipient grade materials yet. Anyway, the energy he had consumed for teleportation to this area was refilled. The essence chi ancient tree in his body was filled. Today, he stopped by a lush lawn. His eyes brightened in thrill. Those green tufts were immortal grass. To him, a warrior with immortal demon blood, the immortal grass was a great tonic. Shiryan didn't want to keep his manner, so he lingered on this lawn to pick up the immortal grass and grind them to take the green fluid. His fingers absorbed the fluid, and he used the magical energy from the liquid to generate immortal demon blood. Just like he had taken in the panacea, he felt so refreshed. The ruby drops of immortal demon blood were generated and were stashed inside his veins, bones, and even his lungs. Tufts of immortal grass disappeared under his fingers. Gradually, the immortal grass around him was cleared, and it left a bare ground. He sat neatly on the damp, muddy area. His aura was quiet when he was mobilizing the immortal demon blood in his body. It circulated around his internal organs and made them fill each of his veins. His blood chi surged like a rising tide, shooting out from his god body. Bones of his skeleton sounded of crack. Each of his muscles was shivering as if the muscles were taking in energy and sounding happy. The shrunken 720 acupuncture points in his body started to vibrate. When drops of immortal demon blood circulated in his body, he seemed to receive great god power. He felt that an unrivaled energy had just filled his body. Beams of blood mist flew out of his pores. His god body was quenched another time as if he had a complete transformation. Those immortal grass had helped him generate more than 300 drops of immortal demon blood. Those drops of immortal demon blood flew through his veins and burnt down dregs and contaminations, which made his god body tougher and more tenacious. Shortly, he transformed into an immortal demon shape. Ferocious, sharp spikes appeared on his elbows, knees, and shoulders. His body was as red as melting iron. At this moment, his body had an exploding beauty with the natural armor that covered his entire body. He looked like the perfect knight with a naturally fierce and brutal aura. This procedure took time. The bones in his body sounded of crack crack for a long time. Eventually, he resumed his normal shape. After a while, he awoke and slowly stood up to check his condition. He grinned happily. Although his realm hadn't broken through yet, each muscle of his was filled with power, and his bones like iron. Now Shiryan had confidence that nothing could break him. His thought flickered, and his eyes shot out dazzling light that was aimed at the pinky finger of his left hand. The fingertip exploded when he released the star energy in his body through his finger. He immediately urged the immortal demon blood. A ruby immortal demon blood was sent to that damaged area. The supernatural recovery ability of the immortal demon blood was activated immediately. He could feel clearly that the broken bones were covered and connected shortly. After 15 minutes, he found his little bone was recovered. Checking for a while, he saw nothing abnormal. He suddenly recognized the tenaciousness and recovery level of his body. All had become terrifying because of his immortal demon blood. Laughing, he urged the energy in his body, striding forward. He felt he had reached the peak of his state, and he would break through to the second sky of ethereal god realm soon. Swoosh! 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 The ear-splitting wind hissed by his ears as if something was whipping in the air, which almost exploded in the air. Standing bewildered for a while, Shuryen accelerated and dashed towards the source of the sound. Dozens of meters-long vines were winding around a blurry shadow in front of him. Those vines had a lot of sharp thorns that danced like crazy pythons and wreaked havoc in that area. Their auras were so frightening. He concentrated and observed. That massive blurry shadow over there was a kind of bizarre demonic Rattan. It looked like a small mountain with so many vines, which were moving and whipping unceasingly. Those vines were trying to capture a person. That figure was dashing madly like an electric beam and swaying between vines that had covered the sky. Surprisingly, that was Shang-Chen's daughter, a warrior cultivating lightning and ice powers Upanishad at third sky of ethereal god realm. However, her condition was evidently not good in this moment. Chapter 1093, 100 Kalpa Ghost Hand Rattan. Chapter 1093, 100 Kalpa Ghost Hand Rattan, _ The iron-like thorny Rattans were dancing in the sky like lightning strikes. They had crushed a lot of surrounding things. The demonic Rattan was like a small mountain with many strong, terrifying vines. They looked rigid enough to resist different energy attacks. The lightning strikes that the woman had used couldn't scratch it much. While those vines were moving at the air, they narrowed her available space. Gradually, she lost space to hide. The vines had a lot of sharp thorns. When they passed by her, they brought gusts of wind that blew her body and made her shiver. When those Rattans touched her blue dresses that were made of some special materials, they were cut open. Her blue dress was torn, revealing her soft, creamy white skin. She became more anxious, her breathing disordered. Her soul altar became turbulent. The dispute between her lightning and ice powers Upanishad emerged, which reduced the power of her attacks. Normally, warriors who cultivated different powers Upanishads could use their powers to support each other or fuse their powers into one with a special method, further promoting their powers to another higher level. However, there were still different situations. Before they could fuse the powers and let their mind be turbulent, the dispute between powers Upanishads happened, which reduced the powers of their powers Upanishads. The vines pushed the girl into a corner. As her attacks couldn't do what she had expected, she became more anxious, which triggered the conflict between her two powers. It was also the reason why most of the warriors wouldn't cultivate two or more powers Upanishad at the same time. When a warrior cultivates different powers Upanishad at the same time, their breakthrough slows down when they reach ethereal god realm. Their progress would be slower than the warriors who cultivate only one power Upanishad. It was really hard to fuse different powers Upanishads, and at the same time, it could cause a conflict between the powers during fighting that would decrease the warrior's fighting competence. Shang-Chen's daughter had strange halos ripple through her eyes. Terrifying lightning strikes burst out from her rings on her porcelain wrists. Suddenly, a dazzling lightning strike emerged. In just a blink of an eye, she had a shining blue lightning rod in her hand. This rod was made of pure lightning energy with burning power stored inside. With the blue lightning rod in her hands, the lightning beams crawling on her body had the gates to gush out. They all flowed fiercely towards the lightning rod. Within that moment, billion lightning beams twisted together. The lightning strike that was just generated became longer and larger. The furious energy it carried increased unceasingly. At first glance, Shuryen slightly paled, his face fearful. That blue lightning rod was apparently an original incipient grade weapon. It could absorb and amplify the lightning energy in her body. After she took out the lightning rod, her aura changed massively. At this moment, she didn't use any bit of her cold energy. She used pure lightning to control the lightning rod. The area around her now had countless lightning strikes that created terrifying electric dragons. The rod that the woman was holding was also a divine weapon of lightning class. However, it was much better than Du Lin's Thunder God Spear. Shuryen could tell that because the lightning energy accumulated inside that rod was much more abundant and turbulent. The tenacious vines got hit by lightning strikes every time they made their way to approach the girl, sending gray smoke to the air. This demonic Rattan wasn't rooted inside the swamp. It could move fast and agilely. Seeing the girl take out that lightning rod, the massive body of the demonic Rattan wiggled, retracted the vines, and sank back into the swamp. Countless vines moved toward the Rattan. Shortly after, the demonic tree disappeared into the murky wetland. The woman looked upset. She cursed and struck her lightning energy into the swamp, which sent the muddy water into the sky. It seemed like she had waited and plotted that demonic Rattan for a long time. She even tried to hide her real power and the divine weapon to entice that tree. However, seeing Shuryen emerge, she was afraid that he could ambush her. Thus, she had to use the divine weapon before the right time she had planned. This commotion had scared the demonic Rattan and made it run away. Cursing the tree for a while, she turned around with her cold face and glared at Shuryen. She said indignantly, "It's you again." Frowning, Shuryen didn't get a clue. "It has nothing to do with me, doesn't it? If you hadn't appeared, I could have lured the 100 Kalpa ghost hand Rattan out of its bog and killed it," said the young woman with a pair of cold and harsh eyes. "I just passed by coincidentally. It's you who thought that I would attack you. It's your mistake." Shuryen shook his head and didn't mind her anymore. He frowned and prepared to leave. "You shouldn't dream of leaving," she snorted. "Let's sum up the dead of you peeping at me." She didn't use the lightning divine weapon to attack Shuryen. Her rod turned into an azure lightning strike and then a jade ring on her moonlight wrist. Her 10 slender and delicate fingers moved, shooting out lightning strikes that weaved with each other into a thick mesh lightning net. Thunder sounded grumblingly in that net which flashed with the blinding lightning. The net suddenly snatched over Shuryen. At the same time, an icy aura spread over from the swamp under his feet. Shuryen couldn't react when the cold air intruded his feet. As soon as the cold air got through his feet, his legs froze and locked his veins and bones. He couldn't move or run away. Apparently, this woman was prepared. She knew that she couldn't find Shuryen if she let him run once. Thus, she had mobilized the ice energy earlier and sent it underground. When she created the lightning net, she had also urged the freezing energy to block Shuryen, which prevented him from using the star energy to escape. Her eyes were elegant, but as cold as the frost flower. They had a gleam of arrogance and coldness. "Let's see how you run from me this time." Shuryen burst out laughing and said begrudgingly, "Do you think you can kill me with this?" Boom! A fiercely brutal aura shot up into the sky with a deadly murderous aura. Crack! Crack! Shuryen's feet were set free instantly. When the bloodthirsty aura was released, his veins and bones moved with boiling immortal demon blood. His energy was brimming within seconds. He had a violently surging energy. Crack! Shuryen balled his hand into a fist, which then ballooned like a windmill. He furiously punched the lightning net with plenty of murderous ori. Sizzle! 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 Thunderclaps resounded and lightning beams shot out everywhere when the lightning net the young woman had cast was smashed. It became many sparks twinkling around her. "If I want to fight to the death against you, I'm sure you can't win. However, I'm giving your father Shangchen face. Can you not disturb me, please?" While electric beams were shooting out everywhere, Shuryen told her with a severe complexion. The beautiful eyes of the woman froze as she looked at her lightning net shatter with disbelief. As she knew that she couldn't gather her energy again, she grimaced. "Are you really at first sky of ethereal god realm?" She was called Shanging Yu and she was Shang Chen's daughter. She cultivated lightning and ice powers Upanishads. She had a divine weapon. Shang Chen used to use different blood chi to quench her body. Whether it was because of her divine weapon or her exquisite powers Upanishads, she belonged to the group of top warriors in this vast universe. At third sky of ethereal god realm, she could defeat most first sky of incipient god realm experts. She had the competence to challenge the warriors whose realms were one level higher than hers. However, it was unacceptable to her when Shuryen had smashed her lightning net. Yan had only first sky of ethereal god realm cultivation base. Although she didn't use her max power in that attack, it wasn't something that ordinary warriors could resist. She deemed herself brilliant, but at this moment, she couldn't defeat a warrior at first sky of ethereal god realm, which was extremely unbelievable to her. However, what made her flame of rage burst was that Yan told her that she was disturbing him. "I am disturbing you?" Shang Yu felt so angry. "You took my guiding fruit and my brother couldn't enter this place. You've sneaked on me twice. And you tell me that I'm disturbing you. I have never seen any man at your despicable level." Swoosh. She blinked. A lightning strike was aimed at Yan. Thunder resounded noisily. At the same time, a strange blue icicle drilled towards Yan's chest instantaneously. This was a combined attack of lightning and ice power Upanishad. The lightning icicle carried two magical powers with a strange, evil energy fluctuation that was beyond Yan's understanding. He was surprised that his soul consciousness couldn't lock it. Frowning, Yan urged his power Upanishad. He rose his hand and made a cut in the void. A fine space crack with outer space streamers appeared in front of him. The lightning icicle, the combined attack of ice and lightning power Upanishads, headed into the space slit and disappeared. It couldn't cause a scratch on him. Seeing that her attack couldn't affect him, Shang Yu became more indignant and her eyes got colder. She wanted to mobilize more energy. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Right at this moment, they both heard the wind flutter from afar. It seemed like someone was approaching. Shang Yu was baffled. She retrieved her attack. Pondering for a while, she agilely climbed on a lush tree and hid her body. She wanted to know who would arrive. She knew about this ancient continent more than Yan. Every warrior who could enter the ancient continent was a prominent warrior of the Great Star areas. Although she was arrogant, she knew that she wasn't invincible in this place. Thus, she knew when she needed to hide. Seeing her hide and not attack anymore, Yan discolored. He looked around and hid in between the branches of another tree. Then, he frowned and watched in the direction of the coming noise. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The wind howled colder like daggers moving through the air, which was pretty unpleasant to the ears. Rumble. The demonic Rattan that was hiding under the swamp suddenly flew up. It used all the tangled but flexible vines to run away as if it was running from something. The demonic Rattan seemed to recognize something dangerous as if it knew that the one who was coming could harm it, so it had to run in advance from the swamp. Shang Yu and Yan were astounded. They silently put up guard since they knew that the one who was about to arrive wasn't an ordinary warrior. Chapter 1094. The Gu God Sect. Chapter 1094. The Gu God Sect. It is a kind of mysterious object artificially cultivated by special methods, which can be cultivated for many years. It can be large or small. Generally, it is a worm or some kind of insect. The 100 Kalpa ghost hand Rattan used its several thousand vines at the same time to fly out of the muddy puddles and run away fast. There were many kinds of spiritual herbs and trees around this area. Murky swamps and clear lakes were situated in this place, which sent thick moisture into the air together with the abundant energy. Swoosh, 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 buzz, buzz. The strange noise was zooming over. Yan and Shang Yu hid in different trees, frowning and waiting. Shortly after, the 100 Kalpa ghost hand Rattan, which had just left, returned. Countless vines wiggled on the ground like living tentacles as it hurried to get under the muddy bog where it used to dwell. Yan was surprised. Before he had arrived on this planet, he had listened to Shang-Chen talking about Desolate, the ancient continent. This ancient continent didn't have any living creature or races. There was no living being with a body and blood like Monster Clan, Demon Clan, or Human Clan living on this planet. Every 10,000 years, Desolate would open, but later on, it would kick those people out. However, there were many original incipient grade herbs and grass. They didn't have blood and flesh, but they did have simple cognition. They were the spirit florists. According to Shang-Chen, the spirit florists had a limited lifespan. They couldn't live and cultivate forever like the monster clan or demon clan. When the plants in this star grew to a particular level, their energy vanished and returned to the ancient continent, which prevented from changing the structure of the continent. The creatures with blood and flesh weren't like that. Taking the human clan or the god clan, for example, as long as their realms were profound enough, their lives could be endless. As long as they were alive, creatures from different races would need energy from Earth and heaven to cultivate. They would grow unlimitedly. Even if a life star could have more Earth and heaven energy, sheltering a large number of this kind of experts, its energy would all be consumed eventually and become a dead star in the end. Grace Mainland was also an ancient continent. However, after the immemorial epic, the antiquity time, and the ancient time, it had given birth to many immemorial creatures, God Clan and the 10 great clans. Until this moment, its energy had been used up. Desolate seemed to have realized this point pretty early. It was the most selfish planet among the great ancient continents. It was like the woman who has never given birth so she could maintain her beauty, health, and vitality. 100 Kalpa Ghost Hand Rattan was a spirit plant that had grown in this ancient continent for a long time, so it had a simple consciousness. The 100 Kalpa meant that this plant would take 100 years for each of its kalpas, and 100 kalpas were just 10,000 years, which was also the lifespan of the 100 Kalpa Ghost Hand Rattan. It could live only 10,000 years. When its time was over, it had to vanish and its energy would return to the ancient continent. A Sanskrit word meaning a relatively long period of time in Hindu and Buddhist cosmology. Sometimes, it's used to describe a calamity too. Seeing the demonic rattan hide under the swamp, Shuryen frowned at the description of that plant in his book. He felt astounded. The 100 Kalpa Ghost Hand Rattan was as rigid as an icy crystal. It had cognition and often hid in the dirty boggy wetland. After it could create 10,000 vines, it could refine the 100 Kalpa soul thread, which was an original incipient grade material that allowed for the refining of the dangerous divine weapon of soul class. Those were the details of Shang Chen's description of the demonic rattan in the book. The 100 Kalpa Ghost Hand Rattan was tough. Once it hid in the pond it was dwelling in, it was hard to force it out. Putting the book away, Shuryen glanced at Zhang Yinyu hide on a tree through the gaps between the branches and leaves. The two massive trees they were hiding in were tall and big with thick branches and leaves that shaded a large area. Besides just 2 people, they could even hide 10 without making any significant traces for the others to discover. This ancient continent had a magical effect on the soul consciousness. Even Shuryen's soul consciousness couldn't catch the life energy fluctuations around him. He believed that people who came here would encounter the same restriction. In this area, eyes were the sharpest tools to find a target. Thus, hiding in a thick bush didn't sound funny at all. Rattle! Rattle! All of a sudden, strange rattling and buzzing noises swarmed over from everywhere. Shuryen squinted to have a better look. He changed his complexion immediately. His face was now ashen. So many toxic insects and even snakes and scorpions were flying in the sky. Shuryen could see the green-legged spiders, black scorpions, and many toxic insects move in gray clouds and cover the entire sky like slashing waves. There were more than millions of them. In just a blink of an eye, they packed the area. Those insects and toxic animals had swallowed all kinds of spirit herbs and grass, leaving not even a dried leaf. On their way, all things were cleared. The wetland was exposed. Millions of deadly creatures swarmed over the area like a disgusting, rising tide, while others flew in the sky. S. A strange whistle reverberated in the place, echoing unceasingly. It seemed that the cry came from a flute that controlled the toxic insects and animals. Shuryen put on a harsh face and slowly pulled himself together. He watched the oncoming venomous things. He knew that the ancient continent didn't have any of those demonic insects or anything that had blood and flesh. Those things came from some people from outer space like him. The whistle he heard was definitely from someone who was guiding those insects. There was something hiding in the dark somewhere. On the tree opposite Shuryen, Zhang Yinyu had a cold face. It looked like she found those things disgusting. Instinctively, women were afraid of those little nauseating things. Shang Yingyu wasn't an exception. Watching the toxic insects and venomous animals coming close, she had released her energy in advance. The cold chi she had released had frozen the entire tree. Demonic insects and venomous animals surged like rising waves on the ground. They started to move and congregate. Gradually, they became a vague face. That was a dark, old dark spirit man whose face was filled with pimples. He looked ferociously ugly. Slowly, the demonic insects and toxic animals gathered and formed his body. After a while, he didn't look much different from normal people. He grinned and let out a hoarse laughter. He rose a bony hand from his loose, black robe, pointing at Shang Yingyu from a far distance. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Countless insects wildly swarmed over. Shortly after, the ancient tree where Shang Yingyu was hiding was covered with insects. Within 10 seconds, the tree fell. Its branches and leaves were all swallowed. Shang Yingyu had blue lightning beams crawling on her body. She stood in the middle of the insect pile in disgust. An electric halo expanded from under her feet, keeping those insects away from her. You're the daughter of Shang Qin and Enlia, and your name is Shang Yingyu, right? The dark spirit old man looked at her. After a while, he laughed evilly. By the way, the guiding fruits you guys have are from our hollow fearsome star area. Yeah, from us, to be exact. You are from the Gu God Sect of the hollow fearsome star area? Shang Yingyu discolored, her eyes showing a concealed fear. Hollow fearsome star area was like fantasy mist star area. They were both extremely famous high-level star areas in this vast universe. The general competence of these star areas was mighty. They were also part of a small number of star areas that the God Clan didn't dare to intrude. Compared to Fiery Rain star area and Agate star area, these two star areas were much stronger. However, the main reason that the God Clan didn't dare to touch the hollow fearsome star area was that of the Gu God Sect. This sect was the most mysterious sect in this universe. Members of this sect cultivated evil incantations and witchcraft. They were so intimidating that even the God Clan didn't dare to provoke them. Members of the Gu God Sect had mastered using legendary venomous worms. They could kill people without touching them. They could make the other's soul alter rotten as if it was gnawed by toxic insects. Legend said that one expert from the Great 12 families of the God Clan used to want to attack hollow fearsome star area. However, while he was still trying to convince the experts of his family, his soul altar began to fracture day by day. The God Clan couldn't do anything but watch him die. They didn't know how to heal him. This rang the alarming bell to that God Clan's family. They aborted the thought of dealing with the Gu God Sect. Of course, many people thought that the reason why the God Clan hadn't started a war was that the Gu God Sect had just operated within their hollow fearsome star area. They didn't show their intent of invading other star areas or causing conflict with the God Clan. At the same time, this sect was really strong. The God Clan had planned to invade the other star areas first and then hollow fearsome star area. Anyway, no one dared to defy the intimidation of the Gu God Sect. This peculiar sect of hollow fearsome star area had a good grasp of the wickedest witchcraft in the entire universe. Even strong incipient God realm experts were wary of them. It's true. I'm from hollow fearsome star area. My name is Sha Zhao. The old man of the Gu God Sect grinned and revealed his white, sharp teeth, which was scary indeed. Sha Zhao. Shang Yingyu screamed in fear, her face more grimaced. I've heard of you from my mother. You are the strongest expert at incipient god realm of Gu God Sect. Haha, overpraising. Sha Zhao guffawed. His laughter was really unpleasant to the ears. I'm here to take the 100 Kalpa soul thread. Am I bothering you? Not at all. Shang Yinyu's eyes sparkled as she talked faintly. If you don't mind, I'm leaving now so I don't interfere with your business here. Suit yourself. Sha Zhao looked at her and then hissed. Countless toxic insects proactively made her way and let Shang Yingyu go. Shang Yingyu didn't hesitate. She nodded and then walked out of the way. When she was about to get rid of the insect surroundings, she talked while walking away from Sha Zhao. I should make it clear that the one who is hiding in the tree over there is not an acquaintance of mine. You shouldn't think I have some other intention for leaving him here. Then, she accelerated and leaped out of the circle of demonic insects and venomous animal like a lightning strike. Xia Zhao was surprised, laughing evilly. "Friend, come out and talk." Shi Yan looked harsh and cold as he watched Shang Yingyu dash away. He took a deep breath and landed away from the tree. Fierce flames burst out from his feet. Many insects and animals proactively avoided him and gave him room to land. The venomous insects hissed as if they were provoked and ready to fight. Xia Zhao's eyes brightened. He was so excited looking at the fiery flame under Shi Yan's feet. Heaven Flame of the Origin. Haha, it's the flaming origin. Good, so good. You want it? Asked Shi Yan calmly. Xia Zhao nodded continually and said honestly, the flaming origin is rare. This kind of flame is marvelously useful to the disciples of our Gu God Sect. Little buddy, can you give up your favorite thing? Sure can, squinting, Shi Yan also smiled. He pointed at his head, it's fused with my soul. Kill me and you can get it. Simple, eh? Xia Zhao frowned and was silent. Chapter 1095, do you have some more? Chapter 1095, do you have some more? Hundreds of thousands of demonic insects and venomous animals lay on the ground like thick gray mats. They covered 10 square miles of this area. At first glance, they gave people a head-splitting headache. The demonic insects and animals could nibble people's souls. Xia Zhao furrowed his brows, his face dark and hard to probe. His inky black eyes had something flicker like an ignis fatuus, which gave him a malicious look. He didn't attack Shi Yan immediately. Warriors from the Gu God Sect had a unique technique to sense the realm and power of the enemies. They could guess their opponent's powers and realms through observing blood qi, mental status, or even how pink their faces were. They could guess precisely the energy and realm of their opponents. Xia Zhao understood clearly that the realm wasn't the only criteria to assess someone's overall competence. Taking himself as an example, although he had only third sky of ethereal god realm, he believed that he could subdue or even kill first sky of incipient god realm expert. He knew that Shang Yingyu, who had just left, was also this sort of warrior. As he grasped her profile, he let her go easily. Xia Zhao squinted, his eyes drilling in Shi Yan. Something like invisible soul threads flew out of his eyes and covered Shi Yan like a net made of seaweed. They were trying to explore Shi Yan. Shang Yingyu didn't actually leave the site. She had used a secret treasure that Shang Qin had given her to make her invisible. She hovered like a faint gray smoke and waited silently by the edge of the insect mass. Her blood qi and soul energy fluctuation were also concealed so that even demonic insects with their great sensibility couldn't find her. Shang Yingyu's eyelashes shivered. She looked at the two men standing in the middle of the toxic insect formation and waited for something. After a while, she was surprised that she couldn't explain the situation. Xia Zhao was standing with his venomous animals and laughing oddly. You're joking, right? We come to this ancient continent for our own purposes. We won't fight if it's not necessary. It's no use to anybody and brings no benefit. Okay, let's deal with it this way. I will force the 100 Kalpa ghost hand Rattan out of the swamp and confine it. You will use your heaven flame to refine it. We will share the 100 Kalpa soul thread equally. What do you think? Shang Yingyu was startled, her face odd. She was so skeptical looking at the two of them. Xia Zhao was the strongest warrior at incipient god realm of the Gu God Sect. As he could take the guiding fruit to access this ancient continent, it spoke up the fact that the Gu God Sect has trusted him a lot. Shang Yingyu had heard about how terrifying Xia Zhao was from her mother. Thus, even though she had come here for the 100 Kalpa ghost hand Rattan, she had proactively avoided Xia Zhao to prevent causing any conflict with him. Although they were both at third sky of ethereal god realm, Shang Yingyu wasn't confident that she could defeat Xia Zhao in a fight to the death against him. Thus, she chose to leave. However, Shi Yan had only first sky of ethereal god realm. Since Xia Zhao was strong enough to shoo her away, why was he so friendly to this low warrior? Was he really powerful? Shang Yingyu had a lot of questions, but she couldn't find an answer. However, when she looked at Shi Yan now, she had changed her attitude. She told herself to be more cautious. Of course, She didn't know what Xia Zhao had seen with the secret technique of the Gu God Sect. This particular technique of the Gu God Sect was called blood-peeping divine technique, which could use the soul consciousness, blood qi, and people's appearances to assess the body's integrity and the profound level of their souls. This technique was famous for its accuracy in this universe. It was also one of the most exquisite techniques of the Gu God Sect. Using the blood-peeping divine technique, Xia Zhao had observed Shi Yan's blood qi, his lean muscles, his heartbeat, and the strange missing soul to make a terrifying final conclusion. His body was like a refined crystal or metal that had been quenched many times. His soul consciousness was as refined as a blood vein. This was the level that a normal incipient god realm couldn't compare to. How could a warrior at first sky of ethereal god realm reach such a level of body integrity and mentality? How could Xia Zhao dare to look down on him? Especially right at the beginning, Shi Yan didn't appear to be fearful. He provoked the other first. This made Xia Zhao more cautious, and he had made up his mind almost instantly. If it wasn't necessary, he wouldn't fight that young man. As Shang Yingyu didn't know that Xia Zhao had used an exclusive technique of the Gu God Sect to check Shi Yan, she didn't understand the situation. Share the 100 Kalpa soul thread? Shi Yan chuckled and glanced at the deep place in the muddy pond. He talked naturally, Can. Then we can work as you've suggested. You will force the 100 Kalpa ghost hand Rattan out of its dwelling, and then I will refine it. Yeah, do it. I'm eager to see the secret techniques of your Gu God Sect. No problem. Little buddy, wait for me. Let me handle it first. Xia Zhao laughed loudly. A short flute, which had a lot of holes like stars, slid out of his dark sleeve. This flute had a snakeskin pattern, making it look archaic and exquisite. Whistle. Ho! Xia Zhao squinted and blew the flute. It then sounded like someone whining and crying, releasing ghosts into this world. Under his low-pitched, gloomy melody, the ambience began to cool down. It felt like departed spirits were wandering around with an icy aura and intruding people's sea of consciousness. Shi Yan's indifferent eyes flashed with an icy light. Shang Yingyu, who was still hiding in the dark, also changed her face. She hurried to quiet her mind and urge her power. In Shi Yan's and Shang Yingyu's sea of consciousness, many toxic insects and venomous animals suddenly appeared. They seemed to be formed by the soul consciousness or real souls of those demonic insects and animals. When the old man blew the flute, they got into the other two's sea of consciousness easily and then began to move around. Little buddy, be careful. When I play the demonic sound flute, our little friends won't stay idle, but they won't purposely aim at you. Xia Zhao said, his voice hoarse and rough. Although he was smiling, there was a wicked intent that people couldn't see deep in his eyes. Shi Yan and Shang Yingyu frowned. They knew that even Xia Zhao was being too friendly, and he knew how strong Shi Yan was. He didn't want to let Shi Yan go unharmed. Besides luring the 100 Kalpa ghost hand Rattan, he had used the demonic sound flute to control demonic insects and venomous animals to probe Shi Yan's ability. He wanted to test if Shi Yan was as strong as he had estimated. Shi Yan understood it clearly. If he showed that he couldn't bear this attack, Xia Zhao's bloody treatment for him would swarm over immediately and leave him no chance to run away. In his sea of consciousness, countless demonic insects were floating and baring their fangs and claws. All of a sudden, they streamed towards Shi Yan's soul altar. Those tiny, ferocious creatures wanted to nibble at his soul altar and then swallow his soul. Shi Yan was so frightened. He couldn't imagine how evil the Gu God Sect's technique could be. Those little things in his sea of consciousness were just wisps of a soul, but they were more terrifying than real bugs. They could gnaw his soul altar. This kind of witchcraft had him aghast at this moment. He had never experienced anything like this. Shi Yan felt a little clumsy and annoyed. Xia Zhao could connect his soul with those insects and animals. Each of them was his eyes and ears, so he could actually get into Shi Yan's soul. He could also feel what Shi Yan felt. He knew that Shi Yan didn't have any solution to this situation. Xia Zhao smiled faintly. He was so proud of the venomous worm witchcraft of his sect. That year, one of the God Clan experts was killed by this technique. The toxic insects had bitten his soul altar to death. Today, Even though this kid was extremely powerful, how could he withstand the soul-eating heaven-venomous worm of the Gu God Sect? The smile on Xia Zhao's face went from concealed to exposed. He looked delighted. After the demonic insects and toxic animals chewed off the soul, they would evolve and transform. The more refined the soul was, the better the benefits that his bugs could have. Xia Zhao pictured those beautiful little things after they evolved. Shang Yingyu wasn't Xia Zhao's target. He sent some dormant bugs to her as a warning for her to not act rashly. Xia Zhao didn't believe what Shang Yingyu had told him. He thought that Shang Yingyu and Shi Yan wanted to refine the 100 Kalpa ghost hand Rattan. He believed no one in order to prevent unexpected events. Once Shang Yingyu showed that she wanted to rescue Shi Yan, those idle insects would take action and give Shang Yingyu no extra time or power to help the other. When Xia Zhao did something, he was always meticulous with backup plans. A cloud of demonic insects and toxic animals swarmed over and flooded the tier of power Upanishad in Shi Yan's soul altar. Those tiny bugs buzzed loudly and gave Shi Yan a head-splitting headache. He couldn't gather his thoughts when his sea of consciousness was turbulent. Seeing the toxic bugs and animals approach the tier of powers Upanishad, a freezing energy emerged. An inky black bead that had always stayed in Shi Yan's ethereal extent floated up. Just like a strange, evil eye, it fell into the tier of power Upanishads. It was the poison-dipped cold bead. The poison-dipped cold bead was condensed from the soul of the departed spirit jellyfish. It could swallow extremely toxic things. With the coldness, it could cool down the soul and prevent the warrior from falling into bedevilment. The poison-dipped cold bead slowly emerged. Black light rings rippled like water waves. The demonic insects and toxic animal entering his sea of consciousness screeched in fright. They immediately scattered and tried to avoid the bead. However, those black light rings had covered them all. No matter how hard they tried to wiggle, they couldn't fly out of Shi Yan's brain. Xia Zhao's face paled. The melody he was playing became more unpleasant and shrill. The mass of toxic bugs under his feet buzzed angrily. Sizzle! 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 Each of the insects covered by the poison-dipped cold bead's black light in Shi Yan's sea of consciousness turned into a wisp of gray smoke after being drawn into the poison-dipped cold bead. Within seconds, all of the venomous little things that had intruded Shi Yan's sea of consciousness were swallowed. Shi Yan's sea of consciousness resumed its state. Shrinking his pupils, Shi Yan smiled strangely. He parted his lips to give Xia Zhao a compliment. It tastes good. Should be a good tonic for me, though. Thanks for your generous gift. Pausing for a while, he smiled happily. Do you still have some? Xia Zhao was bewildered. After a while, he felt so ashamed and said, I'm terribly sorry. Whenever I play the flute, some of those hot-tempered little buddies can't be controlled. It was just a mistake. Please forgive me. Xia Zhao clasped his hands to apologize, his manner sincere and conscience-stricken. It made Shang Yingyu more astounded as she didn't understand the entire picture of it. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.